There's this one moment that I can't stop thinking about. Before I go any further, the majority of this video is spoiler free. However, I will be briefly touching on the endings, but don't worry, I'll be very vague. If you still wish to avoid the endings entirely, skip to the timecode on screen. I will also be covering the entirety of the events within the prologue. It's during the Path of Glory route for those of you who have played the game. You know the one, where Never Fade Away plays at the end of the scene. For those unaware, in this route, the player character, V, had just made a choice to abandon everything for the sake of their ambitions, including a potential cure to their terminal illness. This is also V's first time in space, but despite this, he seems completely and utterly unfazed by what would be to others a monumental moment. This is because V is focused on nothing but his next big achievement, unconscious to the beauty around him. Never Fade Away then plays as if to communicate that V had regretfully made a choice to go all or nothing, alone, but at least he had a killer backing anthem. Equally chilling in another route, Path of the Devil, V's instead humming this same song to himself. In this path, V chose to forego his ambitions and betray his allies, to prioritize his own life and potentially find a cure to his illness. But at the last moment, got cold feet and backed out.
I see your eyes and know you see me. You're like a ghost, how you're everywhere.
Unlike the other route, V stops here to admire the incredible sight that is the Earth from space, aware of the beauty in the moment and his accomplishments so far. In this route, there's no loud band metaphorically playing for him, just you and V alone. Quiet, like he was with you, mulling over the same woes and regrets you were. It really made me feel a strong connection to V, like this was really my V. Until the end of the scene, that is, where it cuts to third person for the first time since the prologue, telling us that V is no longer our character, and he will now live with the decision we made for him. V gathers up the strength to rip off his necklace as the band begins playing for him again. The necklace is a reminder of V's failure and what his dream had cost up to this point, including what caused his illness to begin with. V ripping it off is declaring that he's ready to move on and admit defeat, even if it's in a sad, guilt-ridden future. Never Fade Away playing here is phenomenal. Not only because it's a great song, but because the lyrics are highly relevant to the story. Man, these scenes just gave me chills. It was then that I saw the entire narrative theme come together perfectly after experiencing these two routes. It was at that point that I realized Cyberpunk, despite being a simple one, has one of the most well-implemented core narrative themes out of any action RPG I've played for a very long time. Through Night City, the game is asking the player a question, one that they answer through V's actions and ultimate final decision. Several characters throughout the game may influence this decision, as each has their own response to the question. That question being, quiet life or blaze of glory, compliance or ambition. This is the question at the heart of Cyberpunk 2077, one that is repeated in various different methods to you and V throughout the game, and one that, despite the lack of player choice in a lot of other areas, you get to answer by the end of the game. I know I've made several bold claims here, and for those of you who haven't played to completion, please allow me to provide further context over the course of this video. This video will cover the game's narrative, bumpy launch, the characters, as well as the visuals, music, and each of the game genres that Cyberpunk ambitiously attempts to blend. And then lastly, the endings, in a spoiler segment. Cyberpunk 2077 is an open-world, first-person action RPG developed and released in 2020 by Polish studio CD Projekt Red. The game is based on the universe of the tabletop RPG created by Mike Pondsmith. The game is, as the name implies, set in a cyberpunk dystopian future. Think Akira meets Ghost in the Shell with a bit of Deus Ex. To say that Cyberpunk 2077 was one of the most anticipated games of all time is not an understatement. Leaping off the immense success of The Witcher 3, developer CD Projekt Red seemingly reached for the sky. That is, based on the marketing of Cyberpunk.
You're breathtaking. You're all breathtaking.
To say that Cyberpunk had one of the most disastrous launches of all time is not an understatement. But what if the game, if anything, actually stuck the landing? The answer is nothing. An overhyped, buggy, clunky, poorly written and poorly designed game is all that resulted. That is the common answer. The game in its current state, however, is a different story. No flawless masterpiece, but nothing short of a fantastic game. You are wrong about Cyberpunk 2077.
That's right. Even if I gotta burn this whole fucking city down.
Cyberpunk overpromised and failed to deliver on launch. Not only that, but it was completely and utterly broken. This is not up for debate. The state the game launched in was unacceptable. So much so that Sony pulled it from the PlayStation stores. CD Projekt Red spared no expenses on making ambitious promises prior to launch too, which didn't help things. Branching consequences, for example.
And that was just a glimpse of how complex the branching storyline in Cyberpunk 2077 can get. Every decision you make will have consequences. Your choices will shape how the world reacts to you and affect your relationships with those around you.
Something promised a lot, but underdelivered on, which then compounded how critical people were of any underdelivered features. The horrible launch also led to criticism of every facet of the game beyond the bugs. The game faced harsh criticism and most people moved on. I sure did. This all led to dozens of sensationalist articles and videos that nitpicked things from the original gameplay trailers to use as evidence of CDPR making false promises for features that never made it. The very same trailers that clearly had a message on the top of the screen to say, "Work in progress," does not represent the final look of the game the entire time.
Before we start, a small but important disclaimer. The gameplay you're about to see is from a work-in-progress version of the game. Everything you see is potentially subject to change.
Sensationalist content that often overlooked any of the game's quality offerings for a quick click on the bandwagon. It became the meme of the month to laugh at how disastrous Cyberpunk's launch was. The memes were funny, it made sense, and the game was disappointing. People were let down. It's true that things got cut from the game. Some things made it, some things were implemented well, some weren't. And yes, the state of the game was unacceptable. But beneath all the bugs, there was a fantastic game that delivered on almost everything it set out to do. It just needed a little longer in the oven, at least a year longer. A game that was unfortunately released early due to corporate meddling. Ironic, isn't it, given some of the game's themes? I'm not trying to justify the launch of the game, far from it, but it's undeniable, even at launch, that signs of a truly ambitious, never-before-done experience were everywhere. It's clear that the developers at CDPR had every intention of making an incredible game, as they truly cared immensely. It didn't help things that the marketing team was promising features that would later be cut due to an unfair and abrupt release date set by management, or that players were expecting more and more from the game each passing day. Having ambition alone isn't inherently wrong. In fact, if you look at the AAA games industry right now, it's sorely needed. Cyberpunk 2077, if nothing else, is one of the most ambitious games ever made. Since the release of Edgerunners and patch 1.5, the game has seen an enormous turnaround in players. So, if you want proof of just how much the developers care about their game, look no further than this clip of the game's quest director.
When I was sitting there in that armchair, you know, like just listening to the questions and thinking what the hell I'm supposed to say, it's hard to express, you know, like when you're putting so much heart and soul into something. And you know, for some of us, it's been like, what, 6, 7, 8 years sometimes, you know, especially for those who started at the very beginning. So like to have this moment of actually like people, you know, liking something that we did is really feeling like a bit unreal, you know, that finally are people appreciating it. Like after the release, I couldn't believe, you know, my dear girlfriend, she was like seeing me fucking completely wrecked. Yeah, but it's good to be back, you know. It's fucking good to be back, honestly. I was really it was sort of heartbreaking. This song really makes me...
This video will be addressing the state of the game post patch 1.5, a patch that has brought the game to an acceptable state. You take the role of V, a young merc who grew up as a street kid of Night City. Or in the outskirts of Night City, in warring nomad clans, scavenging and smuggling to survive. Or a corpo, working their way up the food chain of Night City's corporate underworld. You can decide the opening life path of V. This affects the prologue, as well as some interactions with characters throughout the game. It also enables life path relevant dialogue options.
That's the kind of subtlety they teach at Militech. Chip spiked with a virus, clearly.
That is true.
Time you were straight with me. What's on there?
And a few related side quests later on. Unfortunately, not much else, despite what players would assume based on how heavily CDPR marketed the game as a deep RPG. As it stands, these life paths are a nice icing on the cake, just nothing groundbreaking. Events ensue, and one way or another, you find yourself meeting another merc, Jackie Wells. In the case of the Corpo life path, you already knew Jackie. After a couple of missions and unfortunately a montage of interesting events with Jackie that would have been far cooler to actually play,
every new day here means 100 new arrivals, but only half these gonks will survive a year.
You jump ahead half a year. V now has an apartment and a new car, and V and Jackie seem to have grown closer. In the case of StreetKid and Nomad players, one might think it jarring, going from acquaintance with Jackie to friends in mere minutes, with only a short montage of hanging out. Though I would have preferred more development of the friendship between Jackie and V, I couldn't help but find myself liking the guy a lot, and easily accepting of the fact V had befriended him. This is a testament to the writing and voice acting of Jackie. Within a few cutscenes, I could already tell that Jackie was the kind of guy I could easily befriend in real life. The sort of tough exterior, but soft and dorky inside type of person that would do anything for a friend in need.
Come on, let's go have some lunch.
Just like that? You put a barrel to my skull not so long ago.
Get the fuck out. You help my homies. You're okay in my book. No harm, no foul.
None at all.
Getting one of my good feelings.
About what?
About us. Sense a kind of chemistry, you know?
It doesn't take long for the main plot to kick into gear. You soon meet Dexter DeShawn, a notorious fixer in Night City. He tasks you, Jackie, and another character T-Bug with stealing a mysterious biochip from mega corporation Arasaka. From the get-go, it's emphasized how dangerous this job will be, and you're repeatedly reminded through their foreboding presence in Night City that Arasaka is this super powerful, above-the-law corporation that could easily have dirt like you killed.
What'll happen if I refuse?
Don't ask stupid questions. This isn't a request, V.
However, you're also told that this gig is enough to set you, Jackie, T-Bug, and Dexter up for life. A huge risk for a huge reward. Would you take the offer? I mean you, watching this video, if you were in their shoes. Keep in mind, these three are characters living in a shitty dystopian future. Not one of them wants to be in the world they live in. Each is aspiring to escape it in one way or another. Whether it's V aspiring for greatness or a quiet life, depending on how the player chooses. T-Bug aspiring to, well, as she puts,
put me in a luxury Cretan villa from which I'll never set foot in cyberspace again. No offense, but I'm gonna burn any and all bridges.
Jackie looking to make it into the major leagues, as he puts it.
This is how you want to cruise into the major leagues.
During the setup, Dexter asks you an important question.
Mind if I ask you something right off the bangle? Would you rather live in peace as Mr. Nobody, die ripe, old, and smelling slightly of urine, or go down for all times in a blaze of glory, smelling near like posies, without seeing your 30th?
This some sort of test.
Just a pet topic of mine. One more thing, Mr. V. Quiet life or blaze of glory? Later now.
This is the question at the heart of Cyberpunk 2077. One that is repeated in various different methods to V and by extension you throughout the game. And one that, despite the lack of player choice in a lot of other areas, you get to answer by the end of the game. Events ensue during the heist, and the gang witnessed Saburo Arasaka, the CEO of Arasaka, get murdered by his own son, Yorinobu, who then claims there was an intruder in the building, unaware that there really are intruders. Naturally, when the gang's cover is blown, they become suspect number one. Thus, things go to shit, and Jackie, along with T-Bug, end up dead. These deaths were impactful. Not only because these characters were likable, but because of the quality of their writing, voice acting, and dynamic between one another was so good, it felt like these were the beginnings of a duo of main character arcs, not predictable throwaway characters. Their deaths were shocking, especially Jackie's. If only his death hadn't been shown in a trailer a year prior to release.
I'm sorry.
I always assumed it was an optional bad outcome anyway, but still, why spoil it in a trailer, man? By the end of the heist, V ends up with the biochip inside his head. This biochip contains the engram, the consciousness of one Johnny Silverhand, an underground rock star and terrorist. V returns to Dexter Deshawn, who is in a panic over the heist going public due to the gang's failure. Dexter kills V.
Can't risk it, V. Remember our first convo? Seems I've chosen the quiet life after all.
I'll fucking kill you!
No blaze of glory for me.
Sometime later, the chip revives V and begins rewriting his brain with that of Johnny Silverhand's consciousness.
Now like that! Stick some iron in your mouth and pull the trigger!
I can feel it. Our minds touching. I'm like mold on fruit, creeping into you. Nothing I can do about it. You hear me? I'd puke if I fucking could. It's just a copy of the engram. I'm out there somewhere. Gotta be.
Leave me alone! Get out! Just get the fuck out!
Lead to the head, only thing that would fix this. Hear me, bitch? A bullet to the fucking brain!
It is explained to V that without help, Johnny, who is now able to communicate with V as if he were real, is going to slowly rewrite V's brain unless V can find a cure, or kill themselves.
The brain can be tricked. Plain old painkillers do that.
Your psyche's gonna die, V. You'll feel your old self slipping away. At some point, you won't recognize yourself. It'll be terrifying. It'll be painful. But it doesn't have to be.
Fuck I need pills for. To just stick a gun in my mouth. Pull the trigger.
Well, that way you'd kill two souls. Is that what you want?
V is given medication to suppress Johnny, and medication to allow Johnny to take control. And thus, the main story begins. Find a way to save yourself. Just as a side note, I have to say, V and Johnny's reactions to their situation as it progresses throughout the game are acted out fantastically by their voice actors. Gavin Dreer and Jeremy Lee for V, and Johnny's Keanu Reeves. In the case of Keanu, he has often been labelled a bad or mediocre actor, but here when it comes to his voice acting, he's outstanding, showing a broad range of emotions that I really didn't expect from him.
Do whatever it takes to stop him, defeat him, gut him. If I gotta kill, I'll kill. If I need your body, I'll fucking take it.
In the case of V's voice actors, both do a fantastic job, with Gavin being especially impressive given his natural accent is Irish, not American. You really feel the emotional breakdown and fear in V's voice each time the morality is discussed.
Never given me that look before, Vic. What is it?
You, don't got a lot of time left, kid.
Think you can top the terrorist in my brain? You're the best of the best, Vic. Why can't you help me?
You'll fix me up, right? Vic? I'll make it back from the other side, and what? I'm supposed to pretend change is normal? So this fucking terrorist wants to wipe me and take my place, take my body.
What the hell do I do? Vic.
I wish I knew, kid. Misty?
You know, the voice acting of the main cast in general is just stellar across the board.
It's gonna be alright, huh? You'll see Misty, your mom, everyone you love. Jackie, don't close your eyes.
Misty, she knew. She always knew.
CDPR weren't afraid to make V feel vulnerable and weak at times, which I just love, and I don't think you see enough of in video game main protagonists. Oh no, here we have an open world game with loads of side quests and side content, but the main character has a main quest that has a huge sense of urgency. This is going to create an immersion problem, ludo narrative dissonance if you will, without sounding pretentious. Except it doesn't. In other games with this dilemma, the side quests feel at odds with the urgency of the main quest due to the massive disconnect between the main story and what the player is doing in the side content. An example being Fallout 4. Regardless of how you roleplay it, you either play a mother or father desperately searching for their missing son. So when you spend hours doing trivial fetch quests for, say, Preston Garvey, it creates a narrative contradiction.
My son. Somebody took him away while I was still trapped. I've been looking for him.
I'm sorry. I hope you find him. Let me know if there's any way I can help. Anyway, hope you don't mind, but I've got another favor to ask.
Flashback.
But I'm going to find him. I'm going to get my son back.
1 hour later.
What kind of help do they need? Sounded like the usual. Raiders. You'll have to design now.
Contrary to this, the side quests in Cyberpunk are in service to the core themes of the game. For the most part, at least.
I gotta get to a Ripper, man!
You're still V, still pondering that question. Blaze of glory or die an old nobody. Only now, V is trapped under the weight of what that path of glory has cost him so far, and set with a time limit to end with him dying a nobody if he doesn't continue fighting to make a name for himself. Granted, he is dying and in need of a cure urgently, but to V, each step in seeking that cure is more dangerous, and the idea of giving up and letting Johnny take over is often pondered. Every quest you do is relevant to V's situation. Each quest is either building upon V's street notoriety, developing relationships with other characters, or seeking a way out of your whole dying situation. Do you try to find meaning in the life you have left? Do you wish to find love and comfort in others? Do you regret the sacrifices made, or do you want to push forward towards a path of legendary status? It's made clear V's odds of survival aren't great. So what would you have him do? Night City is a horrible place to be. Crime is everywhere you look. The police are corrupt. Corporations murder, lie, and rule over the people, and gangs terrorize the streets. If one is to succeed here, they either join a gang or sell their soul to the corporate gods, or they don't succeed, leave as a nomad, or die in the street. So it's no surprise that V, Dex, T-Bug, and Jackie aspire to rise above their lot in life. Every main character you meet has their own response to the city and the horrible world they inhabit. Take River, a do-good cop looking to expose truths and bring justice regardless of what his corrupt superiors say.
You back on that? Boss already told you to drop it.
See me do anything? Just sitting here, sipping coffee, listening to gossip.
Family man, who cares deeply about his sister and her children. River's response is that of doing the right thing, upholding his sense of morality and protecting his family. Nothing is known about Evelyn at first. She's working with Dex to secure the biochip. Her goals are unclear. It is later revealed Evelyn was working as a prostitute under less than favourable circumstances.
You look like a cut of fuckable meat, are you?
Along with Dex and T-Bug, she chooses the path of glory, risk everything to escape her shitty lot in life.
We lost everything.
Kerry Eurodyne.
Keep playing.
Member of disbanded rock band Samurai, one Johnny was a part of. Kerry lives in luxury, but in reality, lives for his music in the shadow of Johnny. He wants to break free from that shadow and fight the powers that be with music he feels is solely his own. Judy despises Night City. Her home suburb was literally bought by a Night City corp and flooded to be turned into a reservoir. Despite this, Judy does everything she can to make a positive difference in the city, helping to protect dolls, Night City's prostitutes, through her work at a nightclub. But deep down, she just wants to run away. Who can blame her? Her best friend Evelyn has gone missing as a result of trying to escape her lot in life. Thus, Judy wants the quiet life. Like Judy, Panam despises Night City, but has a family of nomads she cares deeply for and is willing to kill for. Goro Takamura. The bodyguard of Saburo Arasaka, the Arasaka CEO, Goro was employed by Saburo as a child, giving him purpose when he had nothing but a life in the slums. Thus, he is loyal to Arasaka to the death, and will do anything to avenge his former boss.
In the army, I was given everything I lacked before: discipline, regular meals, and when I proved I was gifted, an education.
All you had to do in return was kill Saburo's enemies.
Unlike you and your friend Mr. Wells, I was not arrogant. Arasaka gave me what no one else could: values I could honor, live for. You dirty your hands for money. I, in the name of principles.
Wasn't judging you.
And true, you oppose the corporations, their order, their word, in a mindless way, yet you offer no worthy alternative.
Take a look around. It's here. Your corporate world in its glorious splendor.
You show me filthy streets as if no other world exists, as if nothing else is possible. What of the millions who work for Arasaka and receive stability?
Despite his allegiances, I can't really fault Goro. He's taken the one little positive he was given in life and protects it to the death. Goro is a man of loyalty.
It's all going too slow. Gonna decommission before we learn how to rip the chip out.
Johnny Silverhand. Johnny hates the status quo. Johnny is ruthless.
Won't change her. She's not.
Stop that! You have to kill him?
Willing to sacrifice anything to dismantle the powers that be. He is unwavering. As V learns quickly, Johnny is also a massive asshole.
Need a smoke. Where'd you stash yours?
Don't smoke.
Then go out and get some. Just need one last one.
Jesus fucking Christ, man!
The fuck kind of droid toy are you supposed to be?
But not one without values. Each character is a response to the city, but also each in their own way the question, quiet life or blaze of glory. This is why pursuing their quests is relevant to V's dilemma. In the end, the player decides which of these responses is the right one for V. And isn't all of this in some way relatable? We all have aspirations in life. Depending on who you are, you try to rise to those aspirations and either succeed, fail, or you just don't try to begin with. Through V, you express how you would respond to this city. This game may fall short in a lot of role-playing aspects, as I've said, but there is something just special about V's story. It's highly relatable, in a very general sense of course. Not that the average person has a terrorist inside their head.
Where are you gonna take it? Gonna drag a corporal rat on stage, make him kneel, douse him with gas, then light him up?
We do not as yet have word on the exact number of people hurt.
On the surface, Johnny is a ruthless asshole, without a care in the world for anyone but himself.
But I'm the only one with a vision. So unless you got a better one, like I said, go fuck yourself.
As you get to know him, he remains just that. But in learning why, it becomes harder not to empathize with him, and even his goal. Throughout the story, Johnny doesn't hold any tact when saying what he's thinking.
Right, wrong. Chicks will give you shit no matter what you do. This one's a real charmer, too.
This is not what we agreed.
Look at me. See this? This is a look of unfucking surprise on my face.
Though often insulting towards V and his friends, Johnny doesn't beat around the bush.
Going ahead with the deal behind Rogue's back. Brave, I guess, or fucking dumber than a drum.
Listen, I know you've got some serious questions that she's got the answers to, but it's just not gonna happen. She's completely out of it.
You've got to be fucking kidding me. This chick gets on my nerves. Let's you and me blow. Just don't wake her up.
Why? Because she cares about people? And that reminds you you're a narcissistic asshole?
She's all over the place. Refuses to take the door, jumps out a window, then acts all surprised when she gets hurt.
Not about to leave her alone, middle of nowhere.
No, I can't talk to you when you get this sentimental. Waste of words. At least take a nap so we don't have to argue.
Oh, fuck.
Bird offs herself to express her undying gratitude to you for saving her ass.
Stop talking.
Can't believe I'm saying this, but this Sokka scum might actually prove useful. And when he outlives his purpose, we'll flatline him.
But Garo's not a bad guy.
Not a bad guy. He was Saburo fucking Arasaka's bodyguard. Think his pretty eyes landed him that gig?
Through these interactions, you begin to realize Johnny is most certainly an asshole, but he's honest. The guy is completely and utterly authentic and true to his values. But what are his values? He's waging a war against Arasaka. For what? To understand this, we need to go back to the start. Johnny Silverhand was once Robert John Linder. He enlisted in the US military by lying about his real age as a teenager. There, he fought for his country in the Second Central American War, though deserted the army along with others once he learned of deep-rooted corpo and government corruption surrounding the war.
When I was a young pissbrain like you, I enlisted with a corp army. Was in Mexico when I realized that no matter the conflict, corps always win. Ordinary people always lose.
Feeling betrayed, he retreated to Night City, changing his name to Johnny Silverhand, as he had to replace his arm during the war. Here, Johnny spent some time reflecting and wasting away in a hotel. Eventually forming Samurai, a band he would use to rebel against the powers that be by exposing corporate corruption. But this was far from the end of corporations screwing with Johnny's life. A record label would attempt to blackmail Johnny by exposing his real name. A big threat, given that military deserters were heavily shunned due to propaganda campaigns. In retaliation, Johnny released an album, openly admitting his desertion and why. This was just the beginning of Johnny's war against the powers that be. Johnny continued his war through music. His ex-girlfriend, Alt, would berate him.
It's all a lie. That concert, Samurai, all of it. A ginormous fiction.
You're not a rocker boy, Johnny, face it. Ought to join the wired wackos on the corners, frothing at the mouth as they scream death to Arasaka.
Not long after, Alt would be kidnapped right before Johnny's eyes by Arasaka.
Let go of me!
Arasaka, in Johnny's head, had already been the main threat, and now he had been given fuel to become an extremist. Johnny would learn that Alt was kidnapped to be forced to develop Soul Killer, the technology that led to the engram Johnny now exists on. Johnny would attempt to rescue Alt, fighting his way through Arasaka Tower. Unfortunately, unsuccessfully, as Alt died in the process.
Get out of my way. Alt, come on, don't do this. Fuck!
Later, he would learn that Alt was a test subject in the Soul Killer program, thus still alive within Arasaka as an engram. This would lead to Johnny's final attack, where he planned to nuke Arasaka Tower, and unbeknownst to his team, recover Alt. It is here where Johnny would ultimately fall to the Arasaka cyborg, Atom Smasher.
Told you, Johnny boy. Told you I'd end you someday.
Arasaka would then take the now wounded Rocker Boy and, as revenge, inflict Soul Killer upon him, trapping him on an engram. I just want to mention that Soul Killer as a science fiction concept is awesome. It brings to question whether or not we have a soul in a similar vein to that of Ghost in the Shell. Just take a listen to the way Alt explains it.
You'll save my life, but flatline me along the way.
Your consciousness, neural engrams, will be recorded as data. The rest will cease to exist.
The rest?
The soul. I did not grant the program its name, but Soul Killer does precisely what it promises to do.
Christ, I don't want to listen to this bullshit. Nothing changes.
Everything changes. You know this well.
It is revealed that Alt had contacted Johnny after she became an engram and told him that his war had done nothing.
She fled into the net, and she told me not to come looking for her. This one time she wanted me to just let it go. 'Cause enough people had died for nothing already.
What did you do?
Got my hands on 2 thermonuclear charges.
Then headed back to Arasaka Tower.
At first, upon waking up inside V's mind, Johnny is brash and full of rage. He wants to get out, even if that means killing V.
No, wait.
I'll take control. I'll find a way. You hear me?
Unsurprisingly, V isn't too fond of this and takes the Omega blockers to put Johnny to sleep temporarily.
See you never, asshole.
Upon coming back, Johnny tries a different angle. He exclaims that it wasn't easy coming back from the dead and that they should work together, as they both have a shared goal.
You know, you've got some nerve. First you're out to kill me, now you want to be my pal and make like nothing happened?
You know you don't gotta speak out loud to talk to me. And I've processed some shit, changed my mind. Don't want you dead anymore.
According to Johnny, the two need to enter Mikoshi, inside Arasaka Tower, to free V's mind of Johnny. Later, he makes it clear that he just wants to use V as a vessel to continue his war against Arasaka, promising that he can save V with Mikoshi in the process.
Wanted me dead. Said so yourself.
Made it pretty clear since that I changed my mind. See, me and Arasaka, we got a half-century-old score needs settling, and I plan to do it. That's what I need you for.
Never been recruited into a terrorist cell before. Feel
Listen,
kinda honored,
I
actually.
know things. Where we can save your life. Who can help us do that? You'll get rid of the chip. I'll smash Saka. Win-win, kid.
For a while, this is the dynamic, a sort of symbiotic relationship. Johnny feeds V information that can help the two in getting to Mikoshi, and V fights his way there. But as I mentioned before, just like the engram is attempting to change V, V is also changing the engram. From this point on, I'm going to be going into spoilers relating to Johnny's questline. If you wish to avoid spoilers, skip to the next chapter or the time code on screen now. As V, you naturally see the worst of the corporations and likely begin to distrust and even hate them like Johnny does. However, through your actions, Johnny slowly goes from absolute conviction to showing signs of doubt and even regret in what culminates into fantastic scenes. Johnny saves V's life in one of V's many engram seizures.
Fuck!
Johnny.
You ain't dying yet. I got you.
Here, he takes V to his old hotel room from after the war. As a gesture of friendship, he shows V dog tags that belong to a friend in the war, one that sacrificed himself for Johnny. Johnny promising V that when the time comes, he'll do the same for V.
Imagine we're deployed together, fighting in a war, side by side. Would you take a bullet for me? Want to be clear. I will do you no wrong. When the time comes, it'll be my life for yours. I'll agree to get wiped. Tags are proof of my promise.
And immediately after this, Johnny goes from helping V to further his own war to asking V as a friend to continue his fight. This is a turning point for Johnny. Later in the quest line, the two learn of Johnny's place of burial, a pile of mud in an oil field. No grave, no honors, nothing.
So that's how it is. Nothing here at all.
What did you expect? Headstone, flag, and flowers?
No, I don't know. A marker. Something. Anything.
Alt was right. His war against Arasaka did nothing. In the end, his body was unceremoniously dumped in an oil field. No grave or honor of any kind. Few remember Johnny for anything more than an extremist who died fighting a war he never won. Later, Johnny, with the help of V, tries to create some sense of legacy by rekindling an old love. But, like everything, it fails.
I can't. It's not right.
Johnny is a loser. And I can't help but feel deeply sorry for him. Johnny has pushed everyone close away.
Don't do this! Want to see me give up? Sounds like something you'd do. Know why? Because you've always been a fucking pussy, Carrie. Offer you one piece of advice, for old time's sake. Stop being one.
Sacrificing everything for something that ultimately failed. And in this moment, realizes that his only friend left is V.
We'll figure something out. Better now?
A bit. But let's say it was my real grave. What would you write? Here lies Johnny Silverhand.
The guy who saved my life.
V, you don't know how much I want that to be true. Listen, I realize I fucked up a lot of things. Either let down or used every last person who gave me their trust. Blind, selfish bastard that I was. But I've managed one thing for now. Not to fuck this up. What we have.
No, Johnny, you fucked that up too. You used me. Lied to me. I can't trust you at all.
Is it too late to ask for a second chance? Most people I thought were my friends. They couldn't even stand to be in the same room with me. You're fucking closest to me by a long shot. There, 24/7. And yet, you don't seem to hate my living guts.
Johnny witnessed and experienced corporate corruption and exploitation his entire life, and found purpose in fighting it. Only instead of seeing positive change, he was continuously pushed further into extremism. To Johnny, the entire world was corrupted beyond repair, and the only way to see true change was through force, regardless of the cost of even innocent lives. And the thing is, he was right. In 2077, things are even worse than 2023. Corporations have more power than the government. They can do anything they want, no matter how many lives are ruined. Thus, Johnny did all he could to stop this.
I saw a corpse strip farmers of water, and eventually of land. Saw them transform Night City into a machine fueled by people's crushed spirits, broken dreams, and emptied pockets. Corps have long controlled our lives, taken lots, and now they're after our souls. V, I've declared war not because capitalism's a thorn in my side or out of nostalgia for an America gone by. This war's a people's war against a system that spiraled out of our control. It's a war against the fucking forces of entropy. Understand? Do whatever it takes to stop them, defeat them, gut them. If I gotta kill, I'll kill. If I need your body, I'll fucking take it. Fucking hell. You still don't see it, but you will one day.
Johnny comes to find purpose in helping V, but once fighting for something else other than his own ambitions. He truly changes for the better and V becomes a real friend to him. It's in your hands if you want to tell him to go fuck himself, or if you agree with him. But I think at this stage, few would say no to helping him. At this point, I wanted to help Johnny, as by now in the plot, you've seen just as much corporate horror to agree with him, in part at least. Ultimately, it's up to the player, and things aren't written so black and white that the game is attempting to say Johnny's corporate war is without flaws. Just listen to what Takamura has to say, for example.
You oppose the corporations, their order, their word, in a mindless way, yet you offer no worthy alternative.
This sort of moral ambiguity leads to some bittersweetness in the endings. More on them later. For a lack of a better place, I'll mention here that I love the way Johnny was used in the game. He often pops up in conversations at random points during quests, or even out and about in the open world, to give his unsolicited yet amusing advice.
Well, aren't you the king of fuck-ups?
You're not helping. Now what?
Too bad you can't talk to dead people. Oh, wait, you're doing it now.
Or just to annoy the hell out of V.
Think they make these motels especially for royal fuck-ups like us? AC's busted, dirty needles under the mattress, shitters clogged. No, for real, who fucking comes here to sleep? We're a couple miles outside Night City. Someone leaving town just keeps driving. Somebody going there sleeps in the damn city. What good's a motel in the middle of nowhere? I'll tell you who sleeps here. Fucking
Johnny?
Yeah?
Shut your gonk mouth, please. Saying random shit ain't gonna help anyone.
How the tables have turned.
Johnny, for crying
now
out.
we're the ones sitting around waiting for Sokka assault squads to storm in. Anyone knocks, blast the fucking door. No warning. Just like me, isn't it? Getting trapped in the brain of Night City's dumbest merc.
What happened?
Look around and connect the dots.
There's a handful of times V feels something, usually pain, and Johnny feels it too, further pushing home the fact these two are linked.
What was that?
No fucking clue. Felt kinda good, but weird, like tripping on acid.
The banter between V and Johnny is also top-notch. At points, it strongly reminded me of the dynamic that develops within the TV series Mr. Robot.
I'm sorry, did she finally say anything useful? And now, Pan Am, here's Johnny. Out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. Great work, V.
Hey, I think your implant has a virus.
What are you gonna do, cross your legs and meditate till they drop dead?
Wish you dropped dead. V, Merc, occasional client of Zane's.
Johnny Silverhand, rock legend, voicing V's head.
The fuck,
and also,
Johnny?
Let me pretend I exist sometimes, okay?
I love Johnny as a character. He's what should be the protagonist with a hero's journey trope. Arasaka are the baddies, and he's out to stop them. But in a cyberpunk dystopia, the mega corporations are never stopped. At least not through honorable battle, like, Star Wars? In order to fight them, Johnny had to be just as ruthless, and he knew that. His goal was always just, and he fought it in unfortunately the only way he could within this world. Ruthlessly. Cyberpunk has often been criticized for its lack of impactful choices in the story. This is a good criticism. The game was heavily marketed to have branching consequences. So then if you like choices and consequences, whose character is V really? While the game has a lot of dialogue choices, they ultimately lead to the same outcome later on. You'll often have a choice between snarky V, cool V, or tough V.
If you have a problem, I'm willing to hear it.
Some of you are probably having nightmarish flashbacks to Fallout 4's press X to sarcasm right about now. However, although it may sound like the same issue, it's not. V's dialogue, unlike for example Fallout 4, although sometimes limited, is always responded to differently. I know I keep bashing on Fallout 4, but that game is just too perfect of an example of how not to do dialogue choices. Cyberpunk does have its fair share of choices, most of which don't have much effect in the grand scheme of the story. But that's the thing, the game has a lot of dialogue choices, but their effects are felt on a micro scale. Some characters will respond drastically differently to you at times. Some quests will play out differently, there are some consequences, but that still isn't what was promised, was it? So is this a huge knock on the game's quality? It's disappointing to be sure, and an example of overpromising. One thing that it's not devoid of though, is quality. The writing is still top-notch. Each choice further builds upon your V's character and his response to the core narrative theme. When in main character-specific quests, the choices also build upon your V's relationship to them, be it positive, negative, romantic. However, a lot of the time, characters you treat like shit are still friendly, sometimes even romanceable. Now, in the game's defense, you can still fail these romances if you don't say the right things or do the right quests in time.
Sorry. That was dumb. It turned out messy.
Dumb? Messy? Hey, stop behaving as if you got some ketchup on my shirt.
Maybe I can...
No, you cannot! Not anything more! I never want to see you again!
But it's still pretty half-assed what does and doesn't impact things. When it comes to many RPGs, you've got a few different types of main protagonists. Your traditional ones, a complete blank slate, often not voiced, who you entirely build an identity for. Examples being The Elder Scrolls and Baldur's Gate. Then you have pre-existing characters, who you have little to no control over. A lot of JRPGs are like this, Final Fantasy for example. And lastly, you have characters somewhere in between. Your Geralts of The Witcher and Commander Shepards of Mass Effect. Pre-existing characters shared with you. You shape these characters while they simultaneously maintain their own character. This is a tough balancing act and can be done quite poorly at times. V definitely sits more in the Geralt Shepard park, obviously, but also not. You are limited, but in a purpose-built way. Every decision you make as V is a reaction to the game's core theme and question. Ambition. Is it quiet life for you or blaze of glory? Is your V fed up with Night City, willing to sell out, unfazed, or power hungry? While you can't stray too far from answering this question, the core plot is still great. This is because it's all built around this theme. Thus, it's still well written, emotional, and at times incredible. A prime example of how Cyberpunk does choice is bundled up in one side quest. In my opinion, one of the best side quests in the game. The quest begins with a call from a fixer. The job is to help a man who seeks vengeance against his wife's murderer. That murderer is currently in a prison transport. However, upon reaching your target, this happens.
Lieutenant Vasquez, NCPD! Stop right there! You're protecting a murderer! Drop it or I shoot! Wait! No, stop! Stop the killing! They're here to kill you! It's not their fault. Shoot the guy, and our deal is dead.
Vasquez! Shoot!
Right! Let's just all shoot holes in each other.
Crying out loud. Fuck! We can't leave him here. Media vultures will be here any minute.
The fuck are you doing? Stop! We take him with us.
What?
You can kill the target, Joshua, and the police escort, then take your pay and leave. Job done. Or you can wait and see where this rabbit hole goes.
Come with us. You'll find out all you need to know on the way.
Ha! That's it. Got no fucking idea what this is about. But if you don't go with them, I'm never talking to you again.
It is revealed to you that Joshua has become highly remorseful for not only the murder of your client's wife, but his countless other murders, and wants to repent.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen.
Zuleika is the sister of the man I killed. She wrote me letters while I was doing time. That is how we two were united. Through forgiveness.
This whole situation feels bizarre, but what happens next, I just found painful to watch. In a good way, of course.
Joshua Stevenson, and who are you?
My name is V.
Go. You are not welcome here.
Mrs. El Amar, I have come to beg you for forgiveness.
You murdered my son. That is something I can never forgive.
I truly do regret the pain I have caused you.
Out of my house, now! Just go, please. Out, all of you!
We should leave, really.
Please, Mrs. Elamar!
Murderer! It's okay. Just go. You took my Reuben from me. My child. My son.
You later learn how Joshua ultimately plans to repent for his murders, by essentially live streaming his fucking crucifixion.
Do you not fear God? You stand condemned under the same sentence.
Yeah, it's pretty full on. Back on the topic of choice, you don't have to participate in this crucifixion. You can leave or watch somebody else do it. Joshua believes that it was God who showed him his wrongdoings. Thus, he must demonstrate the power of God and love to the masses to make the world a better place and truly redeem himself. Trust me, there is a little more nuance to Josh's character, but for the sake of time and keeping on with the topic of choice, I'll leave that up for you guys to experience.
Why love?
If unconditional love exists, then so must God. Think of the millions jacked into their feeds like livestock. The children growing up in gang-infested streets, coked out corpos in their offices, and murderers who stalk the streets. I want to reach them. I will reach them. And think of paid killers like you, V. Have you known love? Do you know what it is?
Along for this wild ride is Rachel, a corpo woman clearly manipulating Joshua for financial gain. If you choose to stick around and attempt to help Joshua, Rachel steps in and tries to pay you to leave.
You're fucking with his mind, asking probing questions. You're making him doubt, and most importantly, jeopardizing my investment. So I'm prepared to pay you double what he's promised you to quietly walk away.
Don't do it, V.
If you still refuse and stick around, you can talk with Joshua further. However, no matter what you say to him, he still ends up going through with the crucifixion. The only outcome that changes is whether or not the whole thing was a financial success for Rachel, as how you treated Joshua affects the authenticity of his performance.
Stupid fucking gog! You happy?
What's your problem?
This quest has been criticized as an example of poor player choice. I couldn't disagree more. Through this quest, you can decide several things about your V. Is V religious?
Do you believe in God, V?
For all I know, there could be a higher power out there, but nobody's been able to prove it. No one ever will.
I am so afraid. Will you pray with me? A prayer of your choice.
Don't want to pray, but I'll be right here by your side.
Do they believe in redemption?
Spelling mistakes you can correct, but murder is murder.
Do they think Joshua deserves to die?
Such a shame.
Do they value money over any of that crap?
Job with Jablonski. It's done. Stevenson's in a better place now.
And? Think anything of it?
Professionals don't sit around and think. They do.
Well said, V. Eddies are on their way.
Regardless of how your V feels, Joshua dies. But it's not about that. You're a small fish in this quest, unable to change much, but you can decide how you respond, and that shapes your V. As a side note, you can get Johnny's take on the situation. As expected, he condemns the corporate exploitation, but seems conflicted on whether or not he respects Joshua or considers him a nutjob, seemingly reflecting upon himself in the process.
What do you make of it all?
Guy just might be the biggest nutjob I've ever seen, but it's still corporate exploitation. We could talk in circles, but who cares what we think? What would it change? Corpse will continue to grow rich off his type, and the masses will live on with their pipe dreams.
Hang on, where's Rebel Johnny? Seem to have lost him.
Well, I found him. He's inside that guy. He's the real rebel.
Make up your mind, which is it? Nutjob or Messiah?
He's fucked in the head. The world's fucked in the head, and you're fucked in the head because my fucked up head is inside it. Guess if you want to save the world, that's the first step. Get fucked in the head.
You can also ask Johnny about the idea of God, the afterlife, and a soul. One might think being a main character, a construct, and an outspoken one at that, Johnny might have a strong take. But, well, I'll let Johnny speak for himself.
Fuck, kill me, please. What? Why? So you flatlined, then got your beat back. Don't tell me that's left you wondering if a construct can even be saved. Tell you exactly what brought you back. A clever bit of corpo tech. I don't give it an ounce of thought. Surprise. To me, I'm just that. Me. No netherworld, no happy wonder world, just duped digital psyches.
He doesn't give a shit, and I love it. It's so very Johnny, and the writing isn't trying too hard to force Johnny to say anything profound or out of character. As a side note, this entire questline had its own soundtrack made especially for it, and it's fantastic. The track is thick with a biblical vibe, and also perfectly matches the dramatic and provoking story involved in the quest. It's excellent. So, in essence, V's yours. The plot has consequences, some large, most small. Characters react uniquely on a micro scale, but not always how they should on a macro scale. All of this is still in service to your V's response to Night City. I won't spoil them until the end of the video in a very clear spoiler segment, but the endings are fantastic. Yet somewhat let down by lack of prior consequences. Somewhat. One last thing to mention, Cyberpunk features several dialogue options that are timed. I find these to be immersive as hell, in not only Cyberpunk, but any game they're in. They force the player to think quickly and make a snap decision, often in a situation that the character they play as would be in a panic, breaking down the barriers between player and player character for but a brief moment. In that moment, you are the character, living in their world in real time, having to react immediately and live with the consequences. Or you could save scum. The visuals. Where to begin? The design of Night City is just jaw-dropping. The amount of detail at every turn is ridiculous. Definitely the most impressive rendition of this setting in an open world format that has ever been made. There is nothing like walking through the streets of Night City, especially at night in the rain. The game of course looks great in daytime too, featuring some incredible lighting. The visuals of each district of NC are distinct too. Corpo Plaza, for example, the clean, modern business center of Night City. Japantown, a Japanese-inspired district full of vibrant reds and teals, and both modern and oriental Japanese architecture. North Oak, Night City's take on Hollywood Hills, where all the rich and famous reside. Pacifica, once a beach resort, now a lawless region occupied by gangs. The Badlands, the deserts outside of Night City, home to tribes of nomads. This is just a small handful of my favourite districts, but there are much more. The design of the characters, weapons, vehicles, graphic artworks, all of it is exceptional and cohesively communicates the feeling of the world. That feeling is a brutal, dangerous, and highly technologically advanced punk dystopia, One would immediately notice, walking down the streets, the abundance of ads for sexual services, antidepressant drugs for suicidal corporate workers, guns and cars. What can easily be passed off as edgy, and yes, it is definitely edgy, I think is fantastic. This is a world where every darker element of our current world is pushed up to 11. Gun violence is everywhere. You can literally buy guns that look like toys just for a few eddies at a vending machine. Prostitution is everywhere, thrown in your face constantly. Corporate workers drop from skyscrapers in front of you. There are ads for meat that have a shocking 70% real meat, as wild animals are almost all extinct due to the Earth's deterioration.
Planned euthanasia by Blue Mountain Disease Control of nature's last surviving real-life teddy bear.
Most food, for regular people that is entirely synthetic. The most popular of which is called kibble, and is similar in consistency to dog food. Every detail in this world is a small piece in a massive puzzle of fantastic world building. This is a world where all of our fantasies for the future come true, but so do all of our worst nightmares. There's something I can't quite describe about the way CDPR has done faces since The Witcher 3 that I absolutely adore. Perhaps it's due to their great quality in a genre that's so commonly treated to the worst horrors known to man.
And your goddamn father. Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything.
I mean, just look at this example of Siri talking. You can literally see the dimples on her cheeks forming as she talks. You can see the pores on her forehead and cheeks. You can even see the wrinkles above her eyebrows form as she raises her eyebrows with different expressions. Ah, it's so good. I hope these visual intricacies carry over when CDPR transitions from Red Engine to Unreal Engine. This world is further impressive due to the first-person perspective. Think about it. The closer the camera is to the world, the higher the standard of details need to be. Take any gorgeous third-person open-world adventure game. They look phenomenal, but put the perspective in first-person, often through mods, and things will surely be taken down a notch. Cyberpunk upholds an amazing level of detail at both third and first-person perspectives. Now, I don't at all claim to be knowledgeable in game development, but I have long since suspected that the reason we have never seen a game within the Cyberpunk setting in an open world format akin to, say, GTA meets Deus Ex is because of how demanding on details the Cyberpunk setting is. The Cyberpunk setting, unlike your, say, modern day setting, has, sure, lots of buildings, streets, NPCs, but it is covered in detail. Neon lights, neon street signs, usually 50 times more buildings, 50 times the size.
16 times the detail.
Everything is pumped up to the max in a Cyberpunk setting. So to do the setting justice requires an immense amount of detail, and Cyberpunk delivers on that detail. Combine that with the demands of a GTA-esque open world, like dynamic NPC systems, weather, traffic, police, and it becomes a monumental task. We've had our fair share of games within the Cyberpunk setting, but never one within a GTA-like open world city that upholds this level of detail. Cyberpunk being the first of its kind, and past patch 1.5, landing most of the execution, deserves a lot of praise. The sheer number of unique pedestrian NPCs I would see on screen at once is incredible. They really weren't lying when they said they had drastically upgraded the crowds since The Witcher 3, which also had great crowds. A situation I would sometimes find myself in was running from max-tac police in the rain through bustling crowds, as my V reacted with sways and staggers as I bumped each NPC, ergo a Blade Runner scene. This, however, is marred due to the game's hugely disappointing wanted system, even after it's come a long way since patch 1.5. I will touch on the police system more later on in the video. That's not to say the NPC systems themselves, though, are lacking. They've also come a long way since patch 1.5 and have reached a very good standard. NPCs react dynamically, both in cars and out of cars. Not really something to be praised, just sort of something to be expected. Night City itself is lacking in activities for the player to do as well. CDPR have added arcade machines since the Edge Runners update and seem to plan to add more. I'm more speaking from a purely visual standpoint. The city and its detail is fantastic. We recently got an update from CDPR during their streams about the Edge Runners patch, that in further patches, they will be overhauling the police system, among other NPC systems. This is fantastic news. However, it'll only be coming to current gen and PC. This doesn't surprise me, since I've long since suspected that the reason these systems were so underbaked was because of the fact they had to deliver them to last gen, essentially being held back by last gen. In my personal opinion, this game should have never come out on last gen consoles, and has in part caused some of the disastrous launch. To touch on the visuals, I also need to acknowledge the further context that makes them so impressive. Cyberpunk 2077 is trying to be a lot of different games in one. It wants to be an open world RPG, akin to The Witcher, Fallout, and Elder Scrolls series. With that, it needs to have dialogue choices, loot, customization, stats, perks, vendors, quests, a diverse and large open world, etc. It also wants to be a Grand Theft Auto style open world game, akin to GTA, Saints Row, Watch Dogs, etc. With that, it needs at least decent driving, dynamic traffic NPCs, dynamic NPC pedestrians, police, guns, a variety of cars, and activities for the player to do around the city. It also wants to be an immersive sim, akin to Deus Ex. With that, it needs stealth, hacking, multiple routes in every mission, skill-gated routes, etc. I won't even try to define exactly what an immersive sim is, because I know that's a cause for a heated debate. So I'll instead refer to what everyone else agrees is an immersive sim, Deus Ex, and its gameplay features that are in Cyberpunk, to an extent. Now, I'm not trying to claim Cyberpunk as an immersive sim, before the Deus Ex and System Shock fans flay me alive. I too am a massive Deus Ex fan, so trust me when I say I know it's not an immersive sim. It also wants to be a looter-shootery action RPG with robust gunplay, akin to Borderlands and Destiny. So, does it stick the landing with any of these? Yes, actually. Although not a masterclass in any of them, it is competent enough that the sum of all of these parts accumulates in a fantastic, never-before-done experience. For the sake of clarity, I'm going to refer to what I believe are the hybrid elements of the game as open world RPG, GTA-like, immersive sim-like, and action RPG elements from here on. GTA-like elements. At launch, the open world AI was abysmal. That's not exaggerating. Many players were expecting an open world with dynamic civilian and police NPCs on or surpassing the level of quality of GTA 5. The flagship series for this genre of game. Personally, I never expected the quality of its GTA-like elements to be on par with GTA 5, given CDPR's split focus on so many different game mechanics. I would have been content with subpar GTA-like systems, like many other GTA clone-like games. However, what we got was so far from even the average level of quality, it was shocking. The AI at launch were less AI and more models of people and cars moving on fixed rails.
Wide open space for them to drive around me. This is a fucking joke. They have no driving AI.
There is no actual driving AI, just simple pathing. And as a result, slightly blocking a road is enough to completely stop every car in the area from moving because they aren't programmed to handle that.
NPCs would react in the exact same way if the player engaged in combat.
I mean, if you even shoot your gun once in this damn game, every NPC in the area becomes forever locked in this crouch state and will only get out of it once they despawn from the world.
Without argument, it was hot garbage and led to some entertaining compilations. Post patch 1.5, they're good. They're at an acceptable standard, but nothing to be praised. Sort of something that should have been in the game day one. NPCs in cars drive around, dynamically reacting to the environment now. NPCs on foot react to you dynamically. This is not really deserving of praise. They're basically just doing what you'd expect in any other GTA-like game. However, it's still very impressive given it's inside of a game with so many other systems from wildly different genres. Take The Witcher 3. It's considered a fantastic open world RPG, but rarely do you see people critique its lack of freedom to kill NPCs, or the fact you're discouraged from fighting with the guards, as they can usually one-hit you. Just as a side note, this was actually changed in the 2022 re-release of The Witcher 3 by severely reducing the amount of damage guards could deal, as well as how much health they had. Meanwhile, you can freely fight guards and civilian NPCs to your heart's content in Skyrim, a game that is often seen as inferior to The Witcher 3, even allowing the player to engage in thievery and be arrested. Why is it then that in Cyberpunk's case, the positions are flipped? Cyberpunk is often criticized as lacking in its police and pre-patch 1.5 its NPCs when compared to games like GTA 5. But you rarely hear it pointed out that GTA-like games lack the laundry list of genre elements Cyberpunk has to offer. I believe this is because Cyberpunk's GTA-like flaws have been exacerbated online, while the other elements it juggles alongside are ignored and repeatedly compared to GTA 5. It's still fair criticism, but to ignore what the game tries to balance just seems unfair. Especially so, as The Witcher 3 goes uncriticized for what it lacks when compared to other more open-ended RPGs, like Skyrim for example. What is highly impressive, as I said earlier, is the sheer number of NPCs on screen at once, each of them having different appearances. I saw dozens upon dozens of pedestrians on screen at once at times, not one of them being a duplicate model, each walking in bustling crowds with loads of different walking styles to boot. The driving in both cars and on bikes is surprisingly good, especially off-road. It received some criticism pre 1.5, so CDPR have made some changes to the driving model. Personally, I never had any issues with it, and I hadn't noticed any changes, but many claim post-patch 1.5 driving is much better. All in all, it's impressive what CDPR managed to accomplish with the driving within such a hybrid of an RPG, and on an engine that's had no prior use with driving games. Now, what is a major letdown of this game? Big enough for me that its proper fleshed out inclusion would elevate the game massively. It's the police pursuit system. In all GTA-like games, when you commit a crime, you get some form of wanted level. This is a level that rises the more crimes you commit. With a wanted level, police will arrive. They will either try to kill or arrest you, pursue you on foot, or in vehicles if you flee. The higher the wanted level, the harder and more numerous the police. In Cyberpunk, however, you commit a crime, and rather than having police turn up in cars, police drones will spawn mere meters away from you, out of nowhere. This is somewhat remedied in patch 1.5 by increasing the spawn distance, though it's barely an improvement. If you increase your wanted level further, police officers will spawn meters away. Still no police vehicles. Raise it further and max tac will spawn. They won't drop from their max tac dropships, which do exist in the game. They will also just spawn meters in front of you, or meters behind you. Max tac is this futuristic, Judge Dredd style, ruthless super police force. Sounds cool, right? But flee the scene by car, something you usually do all the time in this kind of game, and not one of these police types will pursue you in vehicles. The missed opportunity here is a major letdown. Although these features weren't exactly promised, there's something of a given when your world includes police and cars. Now, as I've said before, during the Edge Runners update, CDPR have said that they're actually overhauling the police system, as well as adding vehicle-to-vehicle combat. So if you put 2 and 2 together, that seems to imply they'll be adding police chases in vehicles. These features will be next-gen only, so it sort of answers why we didn't have police pursuits. It was something the last-gen console release had held back. The game also lacks vehicle customization, something cut mid-development. This is a shame because the vehicle designs are beautiful, with both highly detailed interiors and exteriors. There are several different color schemes, body kits, and liveries on several of the cars you see around the city, but you can't customize any of them. Noticing a pattern here, every letdown this game brings is even more disappointing by the elements the game does deliver on. Like with the Max Tac Police, their designs are awesome, and having them chase you on foot is awesome too, as they use their cyborg abilities to dash after you. Awesome until the AI can't keep up with you while you scale buildings. Speaking of, the alleyways and rooftops in this game make parkour fun as hell, especially once you obtain the double jump. You should really get the double jump. It's the only good leg implant. It's no surprise, as the game at one point did have a parkour system, but was cut at some point during development. An aspect of it still remains, the ability to clamber most surfaces. Using buildings to get the drop on enemies never gets old. It's just a shame that the enemies weren't programmed to climb buildings along with you. One other thing to note that I really appreciate is, despite the scale and detail, Night City has basically zero invisible barriers. If you can pull it off, you can climb anywhere you want. Perhaps we will see features like vehicle customization in a future expansion, but as it stands, post-patch 1.5, the GTA-like elements are serviceable, and quite impressive, given what the rest of the game has to offer. Immersive sim-like elements. To define immersive sim games is a tricky task, as people have varied opinions. The Wikipedia entry states, "An immersive sim is a video game genre that emphasizes player choice. Its core defining trait is the use of simulated systems that respond to a variety of player actions which, with a comparatively broad array of player abilities, allow the game to support varied and creative solutions to problems, as well as emergent gameplay beyond what has been explicitly designed by the developer." I will now attempt to define ImSims in my own words, even though I said I wouldn't. Sue me, because I will be referring to Deus Ex a lot in this segment. Cyberpunk and Deus Ex both feature what I call skill checks. Places where your skills are checked to determine whether or not you can proceed through a certain doorway or hack a certain computer terminal, for example. Skill checks in Deus Ex were used to push and prod the player towards routes that suited their character build. However, unlike in Cyberpunk, you weren't locked out of a skill check if you were underleveled, but rather it would affect how many consumable items you had to use. Thus, these checks made the player constantly think hard about the skills, tools, and resources they had available. It created an awesome gameplay experience of risk for reward. Take a look at this scenario. Here we have some loot at the end of the room. However, it's obstructed by electricity, which, given a little bit of common sense, will hurt our protagonist, JC-based God Denton. We could run through the electricity without a care in the world like a true Sigma male, sacrificing a lot of biocell energy and health. Or we could disable the electricity at the cost of a multi-tool, the amount of that cost being determined by the level of our electronic skill. Thirdly, we could investigate the environment and discover that with some jumping, we can use the forklift to climb over the hazard without spending a multi-tool. This example is very basic, but as the game progresses, solutions such as simply jumping over the obstacle become much harder. I mention this because this situation is a perfect microcosm of the sort of gameplay an immersive sim provides. Furthermore, you didn't always have to use, say, a lockpick to get through a door. You could think outside the box and blow the door up with a lamb grenade. Gameplay systems changed between Deus Ex games, but for the most part, the principles of the ImSim game design remained. In Deus Ex Human Revolution, the skills that were checked were simplified from computer, electronics, and lockpicking into only one: hacking. And now these checks would outright lock you out if your skills weren't good enough, the same as Cyberpunk. A resource was included to bypass these skill checks, just like it was in Deus Ex 1. However, it was a disgusting pre-order DLC for a single-player game. Yeah, thanks Square Enix. Deus Ex Mankind Divided followed suit with Human Revolution, however the resource was no longer a DLC, and thank God for that. Okay, going back to Cyberpunk. Sorry, I got a little bit carried away there.
Hold on.
Again, pre 1.5, a lot of features involved here were unbalanced and outright broken.
Bruh! That is the second time! How? That is covered! Okay, I'm just shooting them.
It wasn't acceptable for a AAA launch. Post patch 1.5, the game features dozens of missions which include bases that house multiple points of entry. These bases house what I call skill checks: terminals, cameras, and turrets to hack. Points to utilize your tech skill to break through fences, strength to rip open doors, etc. Now, I need to be specific here when I say hacking. I mean hacking of computer terminals. The quick hacking you use in combat plays an integral part of the game if spec'd into, and it's a lot of fun. So I'll differentiate between saying terminal hacking and quick hacking from here on. Unfortunately, you rarely actually have to hack computer terminals in order to access cameras, turrets, and emails. Thus, you're rarely skill checked by computer terminals. Almost all terminals I encountered just let me access them straight away. Another strange missed opportunity. There are a lot of access points to hack in the open world, which also engages you in the hacking minigame, but these are just for money and crafting point rewards. Though enjoyable, the skill check features on things like doors lack enforcement by difficulty and level design. I'll elaborate. The level layouts and skill checks themselves never push hard enough to make players think much about taking routes specific to their build. That's not to say this is always the case. I often had scenarios where my squishy hacker build V had to sleuth his way through windows and side paths because he wasn't good enough in combat to deal with certain enemies. But that's enforcement by difficulty of enemies, specifically how hard they can beat your ass in combat, not difficulty through level design or skill checks. Okay, maybe I'm being a little too hard. You are certainly going to be more inclined to hide in the shadows, hacking security cameras, and staying out of trouble if that's how your character is built. But skill check gated routes are not nearly as integral as other gameplay mechanics. Cyberpunk tries to include some ImSim-like level design during the main missions, but falls short in its open world encounters and a lot of side missions, as you can just walk around most obstacles and skill check gated routes. Think back to my example from Deus Ex 1. You had to at least sacrifice something to proceed. The sacrifice was dependent upon your skills. You could bypass the puzzle with some investigation of the area and mechanical skill. This route was not always the easy route as the game progressed, mind you. However, in Cyberpunk, far more often than not, simply walking around the obstacle is a blatantly obvious option. Also, the mission you're seeing right now is a rare example of a side mission with more than one skill check. Often side missions, and sometimes even the main missions, have one or no skill checks at all. It also is important to be said that immersive sims like Deus Ex are not open world games. They are often sort of pseudo open world and sort of hubs and arenas linked together by loading screens and narrow paths. The very fact immersive sims like Deus Ex are not open world games and more small arenas and hubs allows them to be more detailed and handcrafted, which allows the immersive sim gameplay mechanics and level design to flourish. A lot of challenge can be added to these levels, as you can't really just walk around most challenges because it is not an open world. Whereas Cyberpunk being an open world lends to that issue of being able to walk around a lot of challenges when in the open world. That's why the immersive sim-like elements in the main missions are substantially better, though still not really that great, in comparison to the ImSim elements it tries to give you in the open world. It should also be said that immersive sims often feature limited resources, such as multi-tools for hacking up close. Cyberpunk features nothing like this. Thus, this adds to how the game struggles to enforce difficulty in its immersive sim-like elements. In a game with several playstyles, housed in an open world setting, Cyberpunk has at least tried to maintain some level of ImSim-like challenge when playing on higher difficulties. Skill checks gradually rise as you level, gating you out of paths that require skills that you may have stopped leveling. But things like skill check gated routes and computers to hack to turn turrets against enemies, they're far too infrequent to spec a character around. They just end up feeling like a gimmick, as painful as that is to say. In terms of character builds in combat, quick hacking, and stealth, the game has positive similarities with games like Deus Ex, and in ways better than those games and more visceral and fun to play. But in terms of terminal hacking, skill checks, and overall ImSim-like level design, I hate to admit it, but it falls flat on its face in comparison to immersive sim games like Deus Ex. As some added window dressing and cherries on top, the inclusion of skill checks and terminal hacking is a nice addition, and I still think it adds to the overall experience. And hey, you can even read through people's private emails, just like Deus Ex. And there's a lot of interesting lore to read. You are rewarded every now and then for things like your strength stat or ability to hack a computer terminal, but these things are by no means integral or the main focus. So what? These features don't live up to the standards of balanced game design as the Deus Ex games do.
A non-lethal takedown is always the most silent way to eliminate resistance. Just in case, though, Manderley wants you to pick an additional weapon. Give me the Gep gun. The Gep gun might be useful. Gep gun. Gep gun. Gep gun. Gep gun. Gep gun. Gep gun.
But Deus Ex is literally the bar when it comes to immersive sims. If these elements were more frequent and integral, they'd fit greatly within this game. But as it stands, they don't detract from the experience at all. They barely do anything but add a little bit of fun, like a garnish on your favorite dessert. Thus, it doesn't really tick the boxes for a use of broad player abilities that allow the game to support varied and creative solutions to problems, as well as emergent gameplay beyond what is explicitly designed by the developer. That's a bit of a vague description, so I'll try to slot it into my description a little bit. It doesn't feature nearly as much resource management or risk for reward gameplay via the skill checks and, funneling down certain routes as the Deus Ex games do, the epitome of immersive sim games. The stealth is good. Enemies telegraph their intentions fairly. They're all the hallmarks of your modern stealth game here. Pings, vision cones, detection indicators, etc. And of course, because this is an RPG, getting spotted is easy at first, and gradually harder as you invest in sneaking. It's all done competently and is very enjoyable. Though admittedly, not as good as your Metal Gear Solid or Splinter Cell, but for an RPG, these stealth mechanics are quite fantastic. The quick hacking is like a mishmash of Watch Dogs and Deus Ex. Watch Dogs-like in the sense that you can remotely hack cameras to then hack other cameras to then hack various devices in the open world. Deus Ex-like in the terminal hacking I just spoke about. In Deus Ex, in order to hack something, you had to either get close and personal with a single-use multi-tool or hack a computer terminal. I should acknowledge that yes, Deus Ex Mankind Divided also has remote hacking, but it's nowhere near as powerful as remote hacking in Cyberpunk. And in general, I'm referring to Deus Ex 1 and Deus Ex Human Revolution. To be honest, I would have preferred if they made hacking a little more limited, going full Deus Ex, as the Watch Dogs-like mechanics make hacking quite powerful. There is a resource system to hacking. You have RAM, with each hack using differing amounts of RAM depending on the enemy level and the hack you're using. The speed at which your RAM regenerates is determined by your character's build. This whole RAM system stops camera hacking, for example, from being crazy overpowered. In an early E3 demo, it was shown that you had to physically slot yourself into a guard to then unlock the ability to quick hack enemies in the base from a distance.
In the world of Cyberpunk, once you are jacked into a network, you have access to everything it connects to. Through this Maelstrom gang map, we've now connected to the gang hideout's internal network. From here, we can deploy software that affects the whole squad. For now, we'll simply unlock the ability to perform quick hacks. We'll install a virus that jams the connection between the Maelstrom ganger and his weapon.
This changed later with the player able to quick hack anybody from a distance at any point. There is a breach protocol hack you can also do from a distance that, if done successfully, can shut down all cameras or give a buff to your hacks. I wish they went with the original route they had in E3 though, as it would have made hacking more challenging and a more interesting playstyle, having the player have to get up and close to a guard before being rewarded with remote hacking. You can hack enemies to do various things, like overheat their guns, distract them, non-lethally knock them out, forcibly detonate their grenades. Though sometimes they only have flashbangs, so it doesn't do a whole lot, and you're kinda just sitting there with your dick in your hands, having wasted a hack. And my favorite endgame hack, forcing them to pull out their pistol and shoot themselves in the head. You can also induce cyberpsychosis, sending them into a frenzy that has them attack their allies. There are lethal and non-lethal takedowns. You can grapple enemies, taking them out immediately, or walking them towards lockers or dumpsters to swiftly dispatch and hide their body. Despite being able to grapple enemies as a hostage, which actually has their allies react dynamically by not attacking, you can't draw your weapon while doing this. A strange thing not to include. Again, much in line with everything in this game, two really cool features for one feature that's strangely missing. The level difference of an enemy and yourself determines how long you can grapple them for, with enemies of a too high level being straight up non-grappleable. This is a very welcome balancing addition, as takedown systems in games, especially RPGs and stealth games, can too easily become overpowered. Takedowns unfortunately overshadow any melee stealth builds, making sneaking around with a knife for stealth attack bonuses, for example, kinda just useless. You can throw the knife from a distance for stealth kills, but you don't get any indication of how much sneak attack damage you'll deal, unlike you do with guns. This is a shame, but something you sort of trade off when you're going more in the action RPG stealth route rather than the open world RPG akin to The Elder Scrolls, for example. Boss fights surprisingly allowed for some soft ImSim-like play. Some boss arenas allow for hacking of objects in the environment. You can hack enemy bosses, in some cases just walk straight past them, and do takedowns on them. Not for an instant kill, as that would be far too easy, but to instead take a chunk of their health down. Typically, if executed 3 times, you would non-lethally knock out a boss, with a choice of whether or not to spare them afterwards. It's great to see that boss fights don't disrupt stealth or pacifist playstyles, as we've seen games in the past, like Deus Ex HR, force you into one playstyle, that being combat. It's just a shame that there weren't more boss fights beyond a handful, as some of these were quite fun, if a bit on the easy side. You would think that with the game having so many mechanics borrowed from ImSim-like games, there would be some sort of non-lethal option. And there is, sort of. You can do both lethal and non-lethal takedowns. Some weapons, such as blunt weapons, seem to occasionally knock enemies unconscious, though this is very inconsistent. It's possible CDPR were going for realism with this, judging by the fact unconscious bodies can be turned dead if dropped too hard. What a strange sentence. So there does seem to be an intent on realism. You can also mod your weapons to be non-lethal, but this too has mixed results. It also all seems to be determined by where you hit the enemy or shoot the enemy. The life state of an enemy body is also telegraphed from them either writhing in pain on the ground, with your crosshair lighting up red when you hover over, or not. This is a welcome addition. While I like the clear non-lethal systems for the purpose of roleplay, I also appreciate the realism. After all, I can still play a V who intends not to kill. Whether or not V's enemies fall over and hit their head and die upon being knocked down is another story. Action RPG elements. I'm a huge fan of stealth games. Metal Gear Solid and Deus Ex being among my all-time favorites. Yes, I know Deus Ex is an immersive sim, but the stealth aspects of it are quite appealing to me. So naturally, I gravitate towards stealth builds whenever a game lets me. Thus, I needed the staple of stealth weapons, the silenced pistol, for those silent one-tap headshots. Sorry if you just heard scraping in the background. I just started recording this segment and my cat decides to start scraping the shit out of her cat litter behind me. Thanks, Lena. I was delighted to find out that despite this being a fully fledged RPG, I could indeed one-tap headshot enemies. It was a surprise, as too many RPGs have bullet spongy enemies. However, it didn't one-tap immediately and took some very deliberate skill choices and weapon upgrading, which took time. I enjoyed this. It brought a sense of accomplishment once my V could finally clear areas in Solid Snake fashion. Enemies that scaled too high could not be one-shot headshot, though the game gives a preview of how much sneak attack damage you'll deal, so you're never getting your cover blown because you had to guess if an enemy was too high level for your sneaky headshot. This is a fantastic addition. The general gunplay feels tight and meaty. Headshots pack a punch, the gore is satisfying, and despite this being an RPG, the enemies for the most part don't feel too bullet spongy. Those that are spongy eventually become all the more satisfying to eventually gib when you become strong enough. Enemies react realistically with impressive animations depending on which limb you shoot.
Push the flank!
What's really cool is you can actually get an enemy to drop their weapon if you shoot their hand with a high enough caliber of weapon. Melee weapons are a little awkward, but as far as FPS melee combat goes, it's not nearly as bad as most games, like Skyrim for example. You can block, dodge, and parry. Nothing groundbreaking. There are some satisfying finishes, and just like with shooting, enemies' reactionary animations are fantastic. The game features full body dismemberment, which is super satisfying when using a katana, making melee builds a lot of fun. Even more so as the game allows for a lot of advanced movement. There is something about Cyberpunk's movement though that does feel a bit clunky. Way better since launch, but still off. I'm a bit conflicted about this, you see. A lot of the game's movement does feel good, like vaulting over objects for example. It's just things like sliding at high speeds and lunging with melee weapons that don't feel snappy. The best way to describe it is, you know when a game that's meant to be third person is modded into being first person, and all the animations don't quite feel right, and you need to wait for animations to keep up with you as you move, as if it was a third person game? That's how Cyberpunk feels. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad it's first person, personally. There's an unparalleled level of immersion in the world through the first person perspective. At launch, the movement was terrible. You could slingshot yourself with the game's physics if you walked on something funny. As of now, I'd say the movement is good. CDPR has traded the snappy instant feedback movement you would normally see in any modern FPS for a bit of animation delay here and there for the sake of immersion. It's clearly an intentional design choice, and given the game's single player only, I'm not trying to sweat my ass off in a competitive environment, so I can't entirely fault it. The movement is still predictable once learned and understood, and it's not buggy, it's just a little clunky and pseudo-realistic. Now, how can I talk about this game without talking about the cyberware? My favourite being the optical camo. Could you have guessed? Allowing me to live out my Ghost in the Shell roleplay fantasies. You can mod your organs with various perks like health regeneration, stamina buffs, things like that. Then you have limb mods, allowing for a handful of unique melee weapons and one ranged weapon. I'm sure you've all seen the Mantis blades. They're a lot of fun, but strangely, despite being such a focus point in the marketing, the animations are horrible.
Bruh, look at this dude. Wait till you see the... No, 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 no.
Even stranger, as the first-person animations in this game are all very good. Like, what the hell were you thinking, CDPR? These are the Mantis blades. You literally put these in the reveal trailer of the game. The cyberware are all great fun to play around with, each fitting greatly into various builds. My friend went for a blade-using ninja build with Sandevistan, replacing his ability to hack, but allowing him to enter bullet time at will. I went with the Synaptic Accelerator, slowing time when enemies tried to spot me, similar to Metal Gear Solid V's mechanics, allowing me to pull off some clutch last-minute headshots. In terms of enemies, visually, there's a lot of variety. You have dozens of different gangs, a handful of private military corporations, and the police. The design of each of these factions are great and stand out amongst one another. In terms of enemy units, well, you also have a lot of variety, but it doesn't feel that way. There are 17 different enemy classes according to the wiki. Those classes are melee, fast melee, heavy
melee, ranged, fast ranged, tech ranged, smart ranged, gunner, grenader, sniper, fast sniper, shotgunner, fast shotgunner, officer, techie, netrunner, and android.
The class of an enemy determines the weapons and cyberware abilities you can expect from them. To make it a little bit confusing, enemies are assigned one of the 17 classes I mentioned, but each faction has a different name for the classes. They all use the same iconography though. You can see all of this information in-game via scanning the enemies, which is fantastic, as well as the enemy's threat level indicator by a color above their head. If it's a skull, well, run. It would have been cool if the ability to scan enemies and gain information about their class type and abilities was tied to a certain character build, but nonetheless, it's a cool feature. There is a lot of enemy classes and units throughout the game, and there seem to be some nuance in their behavior, even going as far as faction-specific behavior patterns. But in the moment-to-moment gameplay, I feel like I didn't notice 90% of it. I will give credit where credit is due and say a lot of attention to detail went into the enemies. In playing the game, before being analytical for this essay, here's what stood out to me. But keep in mind, what I noticed was almost always in cases where I was up against higher level enemies, as you'd expect. Snipers could blow my head off, so I needed to hug cover. Unarmed, bulky looking dudes, especially members of the Animals gang and Arasaka, were super aggressive and best kept at distance, as they could really kick my ass. Tiger Claws were often aggressive in general. And hey, this is what the wiki said they'd be like, so I guess it's not all BS on there. Enemies with Kreznikov could dodge my bullets, so switching to melee on them was the best option. Enemies with Sandevistan and Mantis Blades or a sword were very dangerous, as they could dash after me like an anime protagonist at the peak of his character arc and slice the shit out of me. So a flashbang grenade was the best option to immobilize them. Often they too would have Kreznikov, so following up with melee was the best move. Any enemies with the Netrunner ability can counter-hack you if you engage in hacking their allies. They do this by overheating your gun and revealing your location, so take them out first if you're playing a hacker build. Enemies with shotguns were best avoided in close range. You get the gist. The general behavior of enemies is pretty par for the course. They'll take cover, melee enemies will push you hard, as I've said. Snipers will sit back, infantry enemies will fight at range, that sort of thing. You don't often see enemies do stupid things, but occasionally you have the hiccup here and there. In general, the enemy AI is competent and challenging on harder difficulties, but they don't do anything that'll knock your socks off and shock you. There's a good number of enemy units here, but compared to the amount the game tells me there is, I felt like I meaningfully engaged with maybe 1/4 of them. Giving the game the benefit of the doubt, that's possibly due to the fact I mostly ran a single build and a few variations of that build. I know. Here I am trying to make an analytical essay of this game, and I've only played one build. I don't have much to say on enemy classes and units, other than I would have liked to have noticed more of them. But the ones that didn't just blur into the haze of enemy number 6467 were a lot of fun to engage with. Cyberpunk has several different damage types and status effects. Like many things, I never felt pushed hard enough into challenging situations that I had to think much about the damage types I used. Other than the occasional scenario like my counter to Sandevistan and Kreznikov users. This isn't an issue I have solely with Cyberpunk. I often have this issue with action RPGs and modern RPGs in general, where 90% of the game's stats just feel useless, and the idea of min-maxing them for hours on end sounds like some form of sadistic torture to me. So as far as this stuff goes, for me at least, it's pretty par for the course with action RPGs. If you like min-maxing and you like using different elementals, you'll probably have a lot of fun with this. Maybe what I'm after is more examples of unique ways to counter specific enemy types, like how I would use a flashbang on a Sandevistan user to immobilize them. In the vein of Halo or Doom, you know? For example, in Doom Eternal, you have imps, great fodder enemies for health, but if you slow down and let them pile up, their fireballs will melt your nuts quicker than a summer's day in Australia. These enemies are squishy, so you want to use a low tier weapon to deal with them quickly, like the shotgun. In Halo, you have elites. Elites have shields, meaning headshotting them with anything but a sniper rifle isn't an option. So in order to conserve ammo, rather than blasting 1,000,000 assault rifle rounds into them, you could instead overcharge a plasma pistol shot to take out their shields, then switch to a precision weapon for the headshot. Bada bing, bada boom, you're cooking with a sandbox. That's what the game needed more of in order for enemy types to stand out, I think. Yes, I know Cyberpunk is an RPG, but it's an action RPG, so it's fully capable of having different sandbox-like methods of dealing with threats, as you saw with the Sandevistan counter I mocked up. Lastly, I want to talk about the health system. The main method to regain health outside of perks and cyberware is to use inhalers. These function like health potions and stim packs in other games. However, you're not limited on how many you can carry, meaning at any point in a fight, you can just back it up and spam a dozen of them, only having to wait out a brief animation. I really dislike this. It creates an issue where you typically only die in one of two scenarios. Either A, an enemy takes all of your health in one hit, or B, you're in close quarters and can't back up to heal. Past the early game, you're never going to be in a situation where you must be strategic with your health items, as the game just gives you hundreds, even on harder difficulties. It just sucks, to be honest. This is surprising too, as CDPR made a great health system in The Witcher 3 previously, limiting the player to only 3 potion charges until upgraded, like the Estus flasks in Dark Souls, another fantastic health system. In these games, you had to be strategic about when you'd heal, especially in Dark Souls as there was an animation delay. If you ran out, fights became even tougher, making for great gameplay challenges. Cyberpunk just lacks this, and it really shouldn't. So in summary, the action RPG elements here are good,
but it can be better.
Open world RPG elements. I was delighted that even towards the end of my playthrough at max level 50, I was still finding random enemy encounters that could kill me quite quickly given the chance. Granted, I am playing on very hard, like the elite gamer I am.
You're a fucking ugly little cunt, mate, and if I—
This was unlike The Witcher 3, where even on Death March, the hardest difficulty, towards the end of my playthrough, everything became a walk in the park. Now this could be because when it comes to RPGs, I have zero sense of making effective builds, and just go for whatever looks cool, and what mostly makes me feel like Solid Snake. So it's possible I made a horrible Cyberpunk build. I know I said earlier that the health system in Cyberpunk sucks, and that still applies here, even on very hard. Similar to The Witcher 3, you have fewer perk points to distribute than there are perks, meaning you can never truly max out everything in one playthrough. What was perhaps once frustrating for The Witcher 3, I consider a welcome addition in Cyberpunk, as there are many different builds to make, creating lots of replay value, and removing that feeling of becoming an overpowered god of all builds at once, which would just be a bore. At the time of making this video, Cyberpunk has yet to receive an expansion, so this perk limit also allows veteran players to go into future content with a defined build intact. After all, a role-playing game gets dull if you can play every single role at once, right? As a side note, and because I have no idea where else to cram this, the first-person interactions are immersive as hell. Often you'll have conversations or interactions where the UI seamlessly appears when you look at a corresponding person or item. I love this. Now I can't talk about the game's RPG elements without talking about the quest structure, now can I? Main jobs. Obviously, these are your main story missions. There could have been much more, but each one was an awesome roller coaster. Emphasis on the roller coaster. They're a blast, but as I've said earlier, the main story is mostly on rails. It's more about how you react and shape your character through your reactions, with any consequences being on a smaller scale.
Try to set him up? You sit, or I open you. I fucking dare you.
CDPR used one of the very first main jobs to advertise the game as having multiple branching narrative consequences. And when played, the mission does indeed have branching narrative paths. This sets an expectation for the rest of the game, but this mission is the only one with such depth. Just take a look at this excellent decision tree by Reddit user Robert Ogoroli. I've blurred out anything beyond the first few missions, so don't worry about spoilers just yet. Keep in mind, this tree only showcases decisions within the main jobs, not any side jobs. As you can see, the mission we're talking about splinters off several times, with 4 distinct endings, one of which influencing a quest later on, and another unlocking a romance option. But as we move forward beyond this mission, we see that the structure of the quests become far more straightforward. There are still choices, but almost always only 2, and all of them either go nowhere or both just to another set of choices. There are a handful of consequences sprinkled throughout the game, but nothing close to what we see in this mission in question. This is either intentional false advertising, or overambition and scope creep that led to CDPR only managing to give such depth to this one mission. Or it's a mix of both. Regardless, the marketing dropped the ball hard here, and should be heavily criticised for it. Often the main missions had heist briefing-like cutscenes beforehand, and multiple ways to tackle them in an ImSim-like fashion. Side jobs. These are comprised of the game's side missions that see you hanging out one-on-one with each of the romances and main cast, as well as a handful of side stories, some of which are truly captivating. Each is well written, engaging, and well worth your time. Some affect the main story and the endings in small ways. There is this one quest, those of you who have already played know exactly the one I'm talking about. It covers a conspiracy and hints at a secret society that controls Night City. It gets highly captivating very quickly as you peel back the layers of the conspiracy.
Fuck me. Got other guinea pigs besides the paralysis too. Shit. They're wiping the data. We've been made. Yeah?
It doesn't matter what you tell him. It doesn't matter what you think of doing or do. You can't change anything.
What?
We know who you are. We know what you are. We know what you want. You are playing with fire. Don't dare cross the line.
Fuck.
It has connections with a secret questline, which is also captivating.
No one. As expected, I guess.
Don't lose hope yet. Someone actually showed. Can't believe it. There's some actual conspiracy shit going down right now.
Father to the Moon Mother as she descends to Earth.
I have protected the realm of man and shadow, but today they are protected by our children.
Both quests also possibly have ties to a confirmed by CDPR.
I mean, the thing is, if I will tell you, I will pretty much solve it for you, right? And besides, like, you know, it's all about you guys trying to outsmart us, I would say.
Yet still unsolved in-game mystery with ties to an ARG. I'm being painfully vague here, guys, but seriously, this is some cool stuff, and I want to leave it to you to discover if you haven't played the game already. If you've played the game and don't know about the mystery Easter egg and ARG, Google Cyberpunk 2077, FF06B5, and Netwatch ARG. It's a rabbit hole, trust me. Also, the Delamain missions are absolute fetch quest garbage and a waste of developer resources. They play with cliche themes about AI rights, which is a bit of fun, but the missions boil down to chasing down rogue Delamain AI taxis, which is made frustrating by the fact you can't even shoot out of your car. But what's most frustrating is the fact that Delamain calls you non-stop.
Currently at the one of my missing vehicles might very well be near where you are.
When you're just going about exploring the open world, if you just happen to be within the same area as one of his taxis. This is especially frustrating on repeat playthroughs, as no one in their right mind would want to replay these. At one point pre-patch, you couldn't even hang up on the bastard. The missions are dull, they don't do anything particularly interesting with the themes, and the reward is just a stupid-ass Delamain taxi. As if I wasn't already sick of seeing these.
You don't even care, do you?
I have no idea why CDPR made these or who they made them for, but on God, if I get another call from Delamain, Lord help me, I'll fucking... Okay, I am of course overreacting just a little. These quests are alright. Delamain as a character is good, and having your car talk to you is pretty cool.
I've got your number plate.
No.
Fucking wanker.
Your final decision in this questline will determine which of 3 Delamain AI personalities you get to drive around.
Poor kiddos thirsty for freedom, oblivious about the city's dark side.
You think Delamain...
I think for some reason, one car's left in the garage.
One of which is a memory-wiped Delamain that you can teach about Night City. As a result, you have several conversations with this Delamain as you explore the open world.
I'm happy to see you again.
Hey, likewise.
I've returned to my study of human nature and must ask for your counsel again.
Sure, shoot.
What's really cool is these conversations happen randomly as you're exploring the open world, not even just in quests, and it means this stuff could easily be missed by a player that didn't drive Delamain around, which is pretty cool, and I think we need to see more of this kind of content. Developers nowadays are often too scared of players missing out on content, so to have something like this in the game, sort of hidden behind the scenes, is really cool. The second one you receive if you choose to destroy Delamain's AI core. This is one of the leftover rogue Delamain AIs. This Delamain is softer and more childlike.
Your V, right?
Yeah. Yeah?
Well, I know that one thing then.
And who are you?
Good question. Father's last will was to give me life so that I may, offer my services to you. I intend to do just that. Just as soon as I learn to drive.
Gigs. Gigs you do for the fixers of Night City. Completing these increases reputation of the fixer running the gig. These missions are mostly gameplay encounters, set up in large environments like bars, hotels, and plazas. Mostly gameplay with some flavor text and dialogue, though a few of these do include some player choice and a few story beats.
His son was brutally murdered. Only way to catch this child killer is to get your hands on the original BD that recorded the whole thing.
Wakey, wakey, gentlemen.
What's happening? Well, let's not do anything rash here. We just tune and sell. I just got a fresh batch with boys. No clue who their daddies are.
Kindly hand it the fuck over.
Freddy, no! Freddy! Frederick, answer me right now! My only boy, stay with me! Don't do this, don't make me do this on my own, please.
These were great fun for when I was craving some immediate action and not so much after pursuing the game's narrative. Reaching the max fixer reputation gives you a loot reward and some dialogue, but nothing else unfortunately. Another missed opportunity. It would have been cool to see changes in the world based on your fixer rep. Regardless, gigs are a lot of fun. NCPD scanners. These are your generic open world enemy encounters. Found in static spots on the world map, you can do these at your leisure. Each rewards some loot and some small flavor text. Nothing crazy, but a welcome addition. You get these missions from NCPD bounties. It would have been cool if there was some sort of reputation system here, as you're technically working for the NCPD. It could have been a sort of side plot line that enabled V to become some sort of pseudo police officer merc. Now, the content on display here is good, sometimes fantastic. Main story missions are captivating, even if the main story is on rails more than I'd like. The side jobs are equally captivating, sometimes more so. The gigs are fun and challenging gameplay encounters, and the NCPD scanner hustles provide small pockets of combat in the open world. The issue here is how the content is delivered to you. Main jobs are obtained one after the other like most games. This is fine. However, side jobs, with the exception of a few secret ones, are displayed on the world map as soon as they're available. No clues or rumors to follow, not picked up from clubs, bars, or notice boards. Night City has countless bars and clubs that you can explore, and even purchase drinks at. And strangely, they're even marked on the map under the exploration filter, but there's really no exploring to be done here. Some are used for story beats occasionally, but other than that, nothing. This is a huge missed opportunity to have the player engage with the world to obtain missions instead of just picking up their next waypoint from a map. For example, have the player obtain these missions from talking to NPCs at a bar and nightclubs, or even just from reading notice boards or overhearing conversations. It's like CDPR were afraid that players would miss out on content. The fact that clubs and bars are under the exploration tab in the map makes me think that at some point they wanted players to gain side quests from these locations, but it was cut for whatever reason. Gigs are given to the player by a fixer calling you. I can understand this as the fixer is the one assigning the job, but as for side quests, it's just dull. There are a few side quests you do receive via phone calls or random prompts, but these are very few, and it's not really that much better of a way of obtaining quests. Side activities. As for side activities, the game features a handful of fistfight quests, similar to The Witcher 3. These are a bit of fun, but nothing amazing. A couple of prostitutes to interact with. These are okay, but come on, what happened to hooking up with randoms at your apartment? And a handful of street races. The street races are unfortunately few in number and tied to a single questline. Another missed opportunity. They're not very good either. Cars will teleport behind you if the AI fails to keep up, which it often does by crashing into walls or just bugging out. Other than that, there isn't any other side activities. This is something the game really lacks. Night City is absolutely gorgeous, full of great stories and amazing architecture and art direction. but lacks ways of interacting with it beyond quests. Maybe we'll see more in a future expansion, but as of now, the activities are underwhelming. As of the Cyberpunk Edge Runners patch, CDPR have added Roach Race as a playable arcade minigame, with a reward if you get the highest score. This is a good addition, and I hope to see more things like this. It has also been revealed that the game will be only receiving one expansion. This is a huge bummer, as clearly hours of love and passion went into designing the layout and structure of this city. I hope that this one expansion we get adds a lot of side content to the city, as if it doesn't, it would be a real tragedy to waste such a beautifully designed city. The music. My god, the music.
Rockin' the loop, back on the route, back in the booth. Knock out your tooth, do it for truce, do it for trees, do it for me, do it for gang. You don't believe in no fame, everyday day dream, city of gang, 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 gang. In our willing, freedom is slavery. So savage and never shame.
The main OST has 3 composers, one of which being Marcin Shibiwowicz, a lead composer on the Witcher 3 soundtrack, so you know you're in for quality. Alongside him are Paul Lennon Morgan and PT Adamczyk. Apologies if I mispronounced Marcin or PT's names in any way. I tried my best, guys. These 3 each did a fantastic job with the soundtrack. The upbeat and combat scores set the tone incredibly for a gritty, edgy, and cool cyberpunk world. Surprisingly, however, the game has an abundance of more somber and ambient themes, and they are fantastic. One heavily features a blend of cello and synth to create a distinct and memorable theme. That's something I can confidently say about every track. They're all memorable. The more somber songs I recall eliciting strong emotions from me when they played at key narrative moments. There's a particular cello theme that plays in key moments for Johnny and V, and man, it gives me chills every time. The song so perfectly blends the cello elements from The Rebel Path, a song associated with Johnny, say that 3 times fast, with the synth motifs of V's theme. Each theme ramping up in intensity as if fighting each other for control, fitting as the song plays during the climax of V's story with the relic. This game has so many characters with specific motifs in the OST, all of them beautifully woven throughout the soundtrack. I could listen to any one of these tracks, and the moment I hear a certain motif, I would instantly think of a character it was associated with. This is a testament to the soundtrack. Each motif perfectly fits the vibe of each character. The OST is also used incredibly well throughout the game. Something I find lacking in a lot of movies and games is that although they may have fantastic OSTs, they often feel underused, if at all. Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the few games I can say with confidence fully took advantage of its incredible OST to create truly memorable moments and motifs for each character. One particular unsettling track that plays during a quest when you're uncovering a government conspiracy. And of course, there's that one moment I mentioned at the start of the video that hits me really hard anytime I hear it. Never fade away. Speaking of Samurai, Johnny Silverhand's band, CDPR actually went and hired the band Refused to create an entire album for the in-universe fictional band, which is heavily featured throughout the game. Each song is an absolute banger and speaks volumes to Johnny's character.
And in the end, just pay the cost. A thing of beauty, I know. The corporate man starts the fire. With the animal in my blood. Wouldn't stop it if I could. See this all not tipping in. Not backing down. Never down the line. Tonight's the night that we
Lastly, there's a large amount of radio songs to listen to when driving, some of which are the aforementioned Samurai songs. I have no doubt the expansions will feature even more great tracks. There's really nothing I can critique about this game's soundtrack. It all sets the moods perfectly, it hits the right notes, and elicits some pretty strong emotional responses from me. You're in for a treat with this one. It's difficult to truly explain what makes the core narrative thread so fantastic without talking about the endings. Before I go into full spoilers, something non-spoilery about the endings. It's only at the ending cutscenes that you finally see V from a third-person perspective in a cinematic, as if you had only just now stepped out of his shoes. You've decided his response to Night City's question, and his destiny is determined. It's a neat touch. Anyway, on to spoilers. Skip to the timecode on screen if you want to avoid these spoilers. The endings perfectly bring a conclusion to the game's core theme and question.
Quiet life or blaze of glory?
So, what are your options? Well, at this point in the plot, you need to get inside something called Mikoshi, inside Arasaka Tower. Without recapping the entire plot, it's believed this thing can remove Johnny from your head, and quote-unquote cure you. Thus, you need to somehow get into Arasaka Tower. It's uncertain what will become of Johnny, but his chances of survival don't look good. Now, the endings get a little, well, complicated. There are 5 core endings: the Path of Least Resistance, the Devil, the Star, the Sun, and Temperance, with the 6th secret ending being a variation of the Sun. Throughout the game, you've developed relationships with a handful of characters and factions that could possibly provide V with a solution to his dilemma. Some of these relationships are dependent on your choices. Each ending has numerous small differences depending on romances and characters' life states. Ending number 1. The Path of Least Resistance. Give up. Kill yourself and Johnny along with you. No one else must suffer. In this ending, V is guilty for those who have suffered thus far and feels powerless to escape his predicament. V doesn't want to put anyone else's lives at risk for the sake of their own.
Okay. Lost me. Realize the shit we've been through to get this far.
Sure do.
To let it all go now. Why?
Cleanest, least bloody option. We try anything else, people will die.
People die. It's the way of things.
Am I worth their sacrifice? Or you? Besides, it's the only way we'll both be aware.
Of what? Death?
The moment life escapes.
Never really gave it a thought. Funny how you still manage to surprise me sometimes.
Might be something I learned from you.
V, you sure about this?
As long as you got nothing against it.
Not how I'd have done it. But that's alright.
Just like that. No pushback.
Huh. Might have learned a little something from you too. Is it time?
You know, it really is beautiful.
Been nice working with you, V.
Yeah. With you too, Johnny.
This ending is tough to sit through, and the post-credit scene, seeing all the characters reacting, it hurts. A testament to how much these characters had grown on me.
No, there's no fucking point. I mean, So V, how's the real afterlife looking? 'Cause down here, it's still shit. Just wish I had done more. We're gonna miss you, kid.
May you rest in peace, V. I guess I get it. But still, V. Did you even think about, what happens when... Shit, I can't do this. What were you thinking, huh? Or did you think about nothing at all? Is that it? And after everything I did for you, everything!
That's something that always pissed me off, This whole romanticizing suicide bullshit. Like we're all Romeo and Juliet. The only thing you proved is that you don't give a fuck about your friends. Well, guess it wasn't that far-fetched. At least, that's how half the people in Night City end up anyway, especially the good ones. Jamie Sheen, my first partner back on the force, blew his brains out. Anyway, hope you're in a better place, V.
In the end, it was your choice. Your choice to make. Well, you should know it didn't just affect you. It hit your friends, too. Maybe we'll see each other again, V. You, me, Jackie. Until then, take care.
I love the tonal shift here. One moment, we have V and Johnny both agreeing on suicide. V seeing it as the only option, and Johnny going along with it to respect V's final wishes. The entire feeling here is one of acceptance. Then, immediately after this, the game hits you with a barrage of consequences. All the characters either grieving or berating you. It's certainly emotionally impactful and made me feel bad for even choosing this option. Ending 2, the devil. Late in the game, through the help of Takemura, you were captured and later allied with Yorinobu's sister and Saburo's daughter, Hanako Arasaka. She offers to assist you with your dilemma if you help take back Arasaka from her relentless brother. To do this, you siege Arasaka Tower with Takemura and others still loyal to Saburo. Hanako soon reveals her trump card and a major plot twist. Saburo Arasaka is still alive, as an engram.
Fuck me, Dizzy.
She attempts to use this to gain the loyalty of the remaining bigwigs at Arasaka to no avail. Once you reach Yorinobu, he spills his side of the story, and you learn that, tragically, he was out to free himself and others from the terror his father had reigned through Arasaka Corporation. And you are about to stop that.
These people had a chance today, but they lost it. He once told me anything of value is only a flag blowing in wind, and wind is fear. And then, blew in my face.
Afterwards, you black out and speak with Johnny. This conversation is gut-wrenching, as Johnny explains to you how you betrayed not him, but yourself.
Looking at you now reminds me of the moment we met. Still see that same small-time merc, little thief with his head in the clouds.
I betrayed you?
Worse. Lots. You betrayed yourself.
I'm the V who chose to live.
Same drive that kept Silverhand going his whole life. That drive and two thoughts. Never look back. Never look to those around you. So if you're here to tell me something, it's 'cause you need to hear it yourself.
That was the deal we made. I'd stay, you'd go.
You're never gonna get it. It's not about Arasaka. Not even about life and death.
Then what's it all about, Johnny? Enlighten me.
The principle, V. It's always about the principle.
That rocker boy Silverhand's credo?
Something Johnny picked up from V. the old V. Remember what Dex asked you? Quiet life or blaze of glory?
Sure, I remember.
Shame you chose wrong. Damn shame.
You awaken aboard an Arasaka space station without Johnny. Hanako kept her word. Johnny has been removed and is now gone forever. You're finally free of him, only V is clearly devastated.
I feel empty.
You were then forced through a series of mundane psychological tests by the most ice-cold robotic doctor I've ever seen in a game.
Please take the patient away. Please get ready. Testing will begin shortly.
No, good morning. No, got some good news for you.
We must complete a series of tests. Please do not hinder or delay.
Come here.
Either V is suffering from some kind of episode or remnants of Johnny remain, as he seemingly continues to warn you of Arasaka even after death.
You can't stay here.
V is clearly haunted by this choice, and it shows, as they have several nightmares aboard the station. Prior to some of the endings, including this one, Misty reads your tarot. As expected, the tarot for this ending is pretty bleak.
Got another deck lying around, a cheerful one.
This is no joke, V. An inverted devil symbolizes subjugation, losing control, aggression, evil, a power struggle.
However, this tarot reading gets all too real when the devil card from the reading appears in one of your many, many nightmares, showing the sheer dread and regret plaguing V. The tests carry on and on for what feels like forever.
Gonna go on much longer?
We need very precise data.
Can't stand this anymore.
Solve the cube. Please sit up. Respond to the key words. No thinking, just the first word that comes to mind. Loyalty.
Johnny!
Please respond to each term with the first thing that comes to mind.
Quick as I can, no thinking, right?
Humanity.
Johnny.
Please step onto the treadmill.
No.
Naturally, you have the option to go apeshit.
Fuck, no, enough. I've had it. Fucking hate this place. Fuck you all! Fuck!
Between tests, as if things weren't terrible enough, you learn horrifying news. As a result of you helping Arasaka seize Yorinobu, Arasaka forcefully overrode Yorinobu's consciousness with none other than Saboro's via his stored engram.
Somehow Palpatine returned,
Effectively making this evil emperor CEO once again and immortal.
Breaking story. Saburo Arasaka lives once more, though now in the body of his son.
Then comes the gut punch. Takemura arrives to inform you that you're dying anyway. However, he provides you with an option. Upload your consciousness to Mikoshi to one day, hopefully, maybe, be resurrected when the technology even exists to do so. Provided you sign away your human rights, of course.
It is written here that you relinquish all rights, but do not worry. The law is simply behind the times. An engram is not legally a person.
Here, the ending splits in two. You can refuse the upload and instead return to Night City, full of regret. Or go along with it all, in the process betraying Johnny as you're working for those who killed him, those who he hates the most. I love the way V is portrayed, if you accept the upload. He is hunched over, appearing completely vulnerable and weak, almost like a child. A massive stark contrast to the strong mercenary we have come to know. This ending is fantastically grim, yet hopeful if you back up your consciousness. I mean, maybe V will one day come back as an Arasaka slave, full of regret. Yeah, not too happy with an ending. V sells out all of his ambitions and some of his friends to maybe live a little longer. or gets halfway in doing so, only to return to Earth without Johnny and chock full of regret. It's fantastic. Oh, and man, that sequence of fever dreams with the nurse, that shit was awesome. It felt like you were going to be trapped in an infinite loop. I loved it. There are several moments in this ending where you can express distrust and even animosity towards Arasaka. From small things like refusing Takemura's help standing up, to giving Saburo the bird.
Got that right, you bastard.
V!
Silverhand sends his regards.
Although these change nothing, they are a prime example of what I keep going on about. Through seemingly unimpactful actions, you shape V into your V. You could play this ending entirely loyal to Arasaka, or you could begrudgingly work with them. It's up to you how you react. Ending 3, The Star. Depending on your choices, Panam will offer to help, along with her family of nomads, the Aldecados. The entire way through, however, you're reminded constantly of the fact that you're putting Panam and her entire family's lives at risk.
We're sending this clan to its grave.
Fuck, you think I don't know that?
This thought will likely echo in your mind the entire ending, as Johnny didn't want you to have to do this.
You can let me do that. Or you can try Panam and her tarmac rats. But then their lives will weigh heavy on your soul.
To add further pressure, you're made an honorary member of the Aldecados for your actions in the story thus far. Together you storm Arasaka, putting Panam and her family in danger.
Look out for yourselves.
They'll kill you!
I'll catch you later.
Saul.
Carol, I'm heading your way. Hang in there. You'll owe me a beer after this.
As a result of this risk, a close friend of Panam and co-leader of the Aldecados dies, along with a couple of other members of the gang. Earlier in the story, Alt had agreed to assist you once inside Mikoshi. In exchange, she would free all the minds trapped there and merge them with herself. Upon reaching Mikoshi, Alt splits you and Johnny as agreed, but informs you,
"After I transfer your construct into your body, you will die. It is inevitable."
No way. That was not our deal.
You shall live for about 6 months, perhaps somewhat more.
No. There's gotta be something we haven't thought of.
Your body will see you as an intruder.
But it's my body.
The biochip's nanites have altered it permanently. The body is now Johnny.
your options are to either join Alt in cyberspace, leaving Johnny your body who will live out a normal life, or return to your body for a mere 6 months, leaving Johnny to go into the net, eventually riding off into the sunset with Panam and her band of nomads, and Judy if romanced. This is arguably the happiest ending in Cyberpunk, sort of. V in this ending scene throws away his necklace, the reminder of Jackie and his sacrifices so far. V wants to move on from the blaze of glory idea. And there is a vague hint at help possibly elsewhere, but it's more than likely, and given the tragedy in the plot so far, V isn't going to last. Panam promises V they're going to work something out, but in the final moments, you can see it in his eyes. Even with Panam, he's struggling, with only months left to live.
Well?
It's perfect. All great, Panam. We're going home.
Ending 4, The Sun. Let Johnny temporarily take control and storm Arasaka Tower with his old companion, Rogue. Ending with Rogue dead and V a Night City legend, living in a mansion and the leader of the club, Afterlife. Just like the Star, V and Johnny separate with the help of Alt at Mikoshi, and V has only months left to live.
For fuck's sake, Alt. You had one job and you fucked it up? You promised this poor little shit a new life, and you lied.
After the split, V eventually gets a job to pull off a heist on a space station casino, a mission said to be a suicide one that V seems to take on without a care in the world.
There'll be no backing down, no chance at extraction, no chance of survival if anyone notices.
Excellent.
But if this works, you'll gain more than you ever imagined.
Times when I had something to gain are long gone. Now I got nothing to lose.
That's kinda grim. Then again, who am I to judge?
as he's dying anyway, and now that he's achieved his blaze of glory, is without purpose, and must continue fighting endlessly for some vague idea of ambition.
This last job, it's important. Probably the most important job of my life. And if I can get it done...
You will have finally proven to yourself that you're the best. Something everyone else knows. And you will see how you're addicted to the thought.
Ending 5. The secret ending.
If I gotta die, rather fall into my grave, gun in hand and on fire, and not drag anyone down with me.
Huh. You just discovered what it takes to become a legend. Grab your iron. Let's mobilize.
Welcome to Arasaka Tower.
Time to party like it's 2023.
Storm Arasaka Tower with just you and Johnny, risking no one else's lives. Not Panam, Takemura, Rogue, or the Aldecados. While playing this one, your max health is slowly diminishing. This is because unlike the other endings, you and Johnny are both still sharing V's rapidly dying body. Dying in-game leads straight to the same outcome as the path of least resistance. Both these factors, combined with the fact this ending is hidden, really make you feel like you're doing something you shouldn't be. It's great. Upon completion, it can lead into either the Sun or the Temperance endings, depending on who keeps the body. However, unlike the regular Sun ending, Rogue is still alive, of course. Ending 6, Temperance. Upon completing any of the endings other than the Path of Least Resistance and the Devil endings, you get a choice of who keeps V's body. Choosing to give Johnny V's body overrides whatever ending you would have gotten with the Temperance ending. The variations of responses between Johnny and V are numerous and frankly fantastic. Firstly, they differ depending on who you're playing as when you branch into the ending. They also vary depending on if you said you'd take a bullet for Johnny within his side mission. They vary even further depending on the strength of your relationship with Johnny, dictated by various conversations throughout the game, as seen in the pause screen. These variations are actually far too numerous to cover here, and the length of the video is already... oh shit. So, long story short, I'll break down the variations I got. There's some drama here that really tugged at my heart. My V was close with Johnny, so when I gave V back his body as Johnny, V said this.
I don't want to die. Who does? But I just don't see a way out.
We'll find a way.
No, Johnny. We won't. We're out of options. And I don't have the strength to keep fighting. Just promise me one thing, asshole. You won't forget me.
When I gave Johnny V's body as V, Johnny said this.
What I told you at the Pista Sophia, we stick to that.
Turning your back on the problem again? What? A little guilt creeps in and that's that? You give up?
Stop. Just stop.
Gonna just roll over instead of fighting for what's yours? Decommiss yourself because you're too fucking scared to say goodbye? You're loyal, I'll grant you that. But damn it, are you tense? Haven't changed a bit since we met.
I'm so damn tired, Johnny. I just want to start anew. Even if I don't know what that means. It better be good for you too.
V, I'm just scared for you.
I'll see you around, Johnny.
And when I asked for V's body as Johnny, this happened.
Wouldn't mind hanging around a while longer.
Johnny, my friend. Remember what I told you when we talked at the Pista Sophia?
Yeah. Said you'd take a bullet for me.
Yeah. And I haven't changed my mind. Johnny.
Don't make this any harder, eh? Just... don't forget I came around.
And man, this one can be especially brutal if Johnny and V don't get along.
Know what? I couldn't give a pig's prick what you think. I stay, you fuck off, that's the deal.
You lying sack of shit.
Are you fucking kidding me? There are no options, you two-faced sack of shit! You're out, I'm in. That was the deal.
And lastly, when I kept V's body as V, Johnny said this.
I told you. I said I wanted you to have my body. But I can't do it. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. We knew all along this is how it would play out.
Don't fuck with me right now.
Only if you cut your pathetic "I'm sorry" bullshit.
For fuck's sake, defend yourself. You're not even trying.
You know, you taught me to let go sometimes. Save my strength for one last big bang. Goodbye, V. And never stop fighting.
Continuing along with the Temperance ending, Johnny one way or another has kept V's body, with V pulling a Motoko Kusanagi and disappearing into the net. This ending, like pretty much all the endings, is pretty rough to sit through. Johnny is clearly mourning V, and now seems strongly reflective of himself and who he wants to be. He is a changed man.
Oh, V. Really think anyone gives a rat's dick how you look?
Johnny has befriended his neighbor, a teenager who he sees a bit of himself in. The kid wants to be a rocker boy, just like Johnny, but is stuck in an abusive home environment, one which Johnny seems to be mentoring him through.
You forgot it happens. No reason to hit you.
Through some wholesome dialogue that sheds further light on Johnny, you see that Johnny really has changed for the better, and is even attempting to pass on some positive messages to the kid, helping him through his struggles.
I'll run away.
Couple of years and you can move out. Forget about him. Forgive him even if you find it in you. Hey, what's this?
Want one?
Gave all that up. So should you. Bad for your body, bad for your soul.
I'm gonna be a musician someday too.
Better have something to fall back on.
What?
Something. Anything that pays the bills. You'll never grow desperate. Desperate's not a good place to be.
Ha!
Don't forget, it's not the easiest gig.
Yeah, I know. Gotta work hard, practice.
Gotta start scribing songs then. You'll get good with practice, like anything else worth doing. Sooner you start, the better.
Got a few tunes in my head already.
Preem.
Lyrics don't come easy though. I come up with anything, seems like it's already been done or it just sounds stupid. Kinda don't really know what to write about.
Be honest. Only ever write the truth. Especially when it comes to your feelings.
Johnny honors his lost comrades and leaves Night City to begin a new life.
Rogue. Can't believe it turned out this way. I shouldn't have dragged you into this. I'm sorry. Oh, V. Thanks for... Well, for everything. I'm wiser now. And I don't plan to waste it. So this is goodbye.
Leaving the kid a brand new guitar.
You forgot your guitar!
No, I didn't. Haven't forgotten a thing. Never will.
In some ways, I see this ending as the most hopeful. If V took his body back, he would only have months left to live, but Johnny can live out a normal life in it, while V lives on forever in the net. However, to trump this, in Alt's case, when she went into the net, she lost all sense of individuality. So it's uncertain what becomes of V, but he at least has a chance to live on. If V had a romance option, it's pretty damn tragic for them.
Really? You're just gonna avoid me? Of course you would, you fucking coward. Here's a bit of advice for you, Johnny. Enjoy your new lease on life, because it's not gonna last long. Believe me when I say I'm going to find you, you fucking psychopath.
But other than that, this is sort of a happy ending. That's the thing. There aren't really any happy endings in Cyberpunk 2077.
Guess I meant, I don't know, a happier ending for everyone involved.
Here, for folks like us, wrong city, wrong people.
Like, for example, pursuing any ending other than the devil, one of the worst endings in the game, sees Takemura end his own life.
Before samurai committed to seppuku, they wrote Jisei, a death poem. Some are truly works of beauty, yet I am not a samurai, so I bid you farewell with simple words. Rot in hell. Xero.
And this is by design. From the beginning, V experiences a tragedy, one that his ambition had cost him. The entire game from then on is how you choose to respond to that tragedy. Do you choose the quiet life, survival at any cost, or cling to family even if it puts them in danger, or just give up? Do you choose the blaze of glory, fight your way into Arasaka Tower as or with Johnny, but then when do you stop fighting? Or do you let Johnny take your body and step into the unknown? Each character in this game can one way or another be applied to these endings. For example, you learn Rogue took the path of the devil and sold out to Arasaka after Johnny died, which is how she is the owner of Afterlife and Queen of Night City's fixes. The Star ending applies to Judy, as she ran away from her ambitions in Night City to be with her family. You can apply each and every one of these endings to each of the main cast. These endings are incredibly diverse and frankly thematically perfect with the story. Each is a flawless response to the game's core question. Do you give up on your dreams of glory? Is it to run away? Is it out of guilt and powerlessness in the path of least resistance? Or is it selflessly letting Johnny take over in temperance? Maybe it's to see what's on the other side of the net. Is it for love and family, like the Star ending, running off with Panam, possibly Judy and the gang? Is it out of fear and desperation, joining Arasaka, selling everyone else out to save yourself in the Devil ending? Or do you stick with the dreams of glory you had with Jackie in the beginning, the Sun? Let Johnny borrow your body, then come back and take the glory? Or do you convince Johnny to storm Arasaka Tower with you and take the glory by your own hand?
Here, got one more thing for you. Vic pulled this out of your skull. A lucky charm?
The significance of the necklace, V's reminder of what the path of glory will cost. This is another fantastic touch to the endings that I just can't help but gush about. In the endings where V decides to pursue the path of glory, he keeps the necklace. And in the endings where he chooses the quiet life, he discards it. I love the fact that in the variation of the Devil ending, where you back out of uploading your engram at the last minute, V seems to struggle to build up the strength to remove it, as if he had come so close to the idea of his path of glory, only to cave in at the end to guilt. I loved this. It's pretty basic symbolism, but it works well to convey the emotional significance of the necklace to V.
Can't carry this around anymore, you know? Can't keep wallowing. Can't keep obsessing over what happened. Couldn't forget you anyway. I'm wearing your goddamn face.
Each of these endings feels like V is in some part influenced by the decisions of the main cast mentioned earlier. For example, Judy wants to run away from her original aspirations in Night City to be with her family. Johnny wants to tear down the corporations at all costs. River wants to protect his family. So does Panam. And so on and so forth throughout all of the main cast throughout the game. Each has an ambition. It's up to you which of these characters had influenced you the most. Something I didn't appreciate at first was how each ending could be at odds with your romantic choice. I'll explain. If you choose to leave Night City, Judy and Panam are on board. If you choose to stay, River and Carrie are on board, but not vice versa.
What? Couldn't wait for me?
I didn't want to wake you.
Is everything alright? You okay?
No, I'm not okay. Nothing's okay. Fuck.
Panam.
I need air. This fucking city, I will not miss it. I really can't understand it. After all that happened in Mikoshi, you feel no need to leave this shithole?
What would it change if I did leave with you? I only got a few months left anyway.
It would be a few months among people you care about. Tomorrow I will be gone. We're breaking camp. We'll leave at dawn.
This last job, probably the most important job of my life. And if I can get it done...
You will have finally proven to yourself that you're the best, and you will see how you're addicted to the thought.
Can you let me do this?
Fuck. I will remember, V. Always.
I found this annoying at first, but now I think it's great. You can't have a perfect ending if the ambition of your V differs from your love interest's choice. It may sound simple, but I applaud CDPR for allowing that kind of unfortunate conflicting of choices in service of the characters staying true to themselves versus pandering fan service and having characters bend to V's beck and call. The credits after the endings feature characters leaving voicemails for V. These vary wildly depending on your relationship with them and the variation of the ending you got. Now, these endings get bashed a lot for lack of choice, but I don't think it's quite that simple. The endings are fantastic both thematically and due to the branching outcomes within them. What is lacking, as I've said earlier, is meaningful choices throughout the game that led to variety in each ending. As I've said, the endings do have variety in the character's life and romance states, as well as nuance in how you got along with Johnny and your final choice. 3 of the 5 core endings, being the Sun, the Star, and Temperance, do have to be unlocked through correct choices, but it'd actually be harder to not unlock them, as the choices to unlock them are quite straightforward. If you complete most of the character-specific jobs without pissing anyone off too much, you'll likely unlock them without even knowing. This isn't counting the 6th secret ending, more on that shortly. I don't entirely dislike how this is. You see, the game poses V and you, the player, a question. One that you answer with your choice of the ending. If you only got one ending where it was more of something that happened to you as a result of choices throughout the game, that would remove the ability for the player to answer Night City's question after the player had been influenced from each of the characters. But going the other way, if the endings didn't need to be unlocked, then prior choices would feel hollow. I think CDPR were attempting to strike a middle ground here of consequences and simply choosing an ending for V. And they got pretty damn close. I want to briefly mention the 6th secret ending's unlock requirements. You need to pick very specific dialogue options during a Johnny Silverhand side quest. That's it. However, the game literally has a reputation meter for how close V and Johnny are based on all of your interactions over the entire game. But despite what people would naturally think, it's completely irrelevant to whether Johnny likes you enough to allow this ending. As a side note, The Witcher 3 has a similar issue for me, with whether a certain very important character dies. It was based on a handful of interactions that seemed in no way connected. In Cyberpunk's defense, the conversation in question is a character-defining moment that would realistically heavily influence Johnny, but these meters just cause unnecessary confusion. Now here's where Johnny's meters do come into play. There is a myriad of small differences during the choice of who gets V's body. The dialogue between Johnny and V varies wildly depending on your relationship and whether you told Johnny you'd take a bullet for him in one of his side quests. This is fantastic and a great utilization of meaningful consequences. This interaction truly feels specific to you and your friendship, or lack thereof, with Johnny. All in all, I'd say the positives of these endings massively outweigh the negatives. The endings are phenomenal. It's just the requirements for reaching them could have been a little better. One last thing, I love how each ending is represented by Misty's tarot cards, and just how the tarots are used throughout the game to foreshadow the endings. It's really neat. Cyberpunk 2077 overpromised and then failed to deliver on launch. Not only that, but it was completely and utterly broken. Combine overpromising with a broken launch and people will quickly start looking at every facet of the game with a more critical gaze, as well as CDPR's other games. And that's what happened. Even The Witcher 3 got more critically analysed afterwards. Cyberpunk was reviewed harshly on launch, rightfully so, and forgotten about by most. But now, over 2 years later, the game works great. Most of the things promised were delivered on, some weren't. Looking at the game now, I can confidently say it is on par with CDPR's prior release, The Witcher 3, a game that won hundreds of awards and sported perfect scores. Is this because Cyberpunk is a masterpiece like The Witcher 3? No. Because The Witcher 3 isn't a masterpiece. Neither game is. Like The Witcher, Cyberpunk is a flawed game that delivers competently on the majority of its core gameplay features. Some aspects, such as visuals, crowd AI, and playstyle variety, far exceed The Witcher 3. But this isn't a Witcher versus Cyberpunk video, so I won't go down that path. Cyberpunk is a fantastic game. Its gameplay loop is loads of fun, allowing for various playstyles. It ambitiously attempted to blend gameplay genres in a way that's never been seen before, all the while trying to house it in a city unparalleled in beauty and atmosphere. I have never before seen a futuristic city rendered at this scale with the ridiculous amount of detail it has. Its characters are well written and likable, its story is engaging and at times emotional as hell. Its core themes communicated fantastically, woven throughout the story all the way up until the endings. And the endings put such an amazing bow on the whole package that I consider Cyberpunk to have the most well-ingrained core narrative theme out of any action RPG I've played for a long time. Its music is stellar. Despite the hybrid of gameplay genres, each genre element is at the very least delivered competently. Its driving, ImSim elements, combat and quests are all fun as hell. The design of the characters, the world, the guns, the cars, the robots, it's all wonderfully cyberpunk. CD Projekt Red chose the blaze of glory path with Cyberpunk and reaped both the consequences and the glory. And I haven't even mentioned half the side quests, or the neat little spots I found in Night City, or the ambience from the ads and NPCs in busy districts, or the visceral meaty feel of the power weapons, or the random open world conversations with Johnny.
It's like symbolic.
Or how about that quest with the vending machine that... Okay, I'll stop there. You should go revisit this game, because I can guarantee you are wrong about Cyberpunk 2077. Wow, that was a long one. Friends, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. This project has been in the works for the past year, and as it's my first video essay, it's been both a challenge and a blast. Please consider liking the video and subscribing, as it tells the YouTube gods my content is actually worth watching. And if you want to further support me, you can donate to my Patreon. I have a dream to one day do this full time, so any and all support would really mean the world to me. Until next time, take care.
Never stop fighting.